Okay. We'll get started.
Yeah, Carol's saying that she's having a problem getting on. I don't know why.
We'll get started.
Yeah, Carol's saying that she.
I'm sorry, Alicia, I heard that, but you said-
Sorry, it was the YouTube feedback. Sorry.
Huh. Should we resend her the link?
Just one second.
Apologize for the delay, folks. We'll just see if we can get the one more council member hooked on here. There she is. Okay. Welcome everyone to the November 10th, 2021 Hideout Town Council meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order and remind everyone that there's no anchor site due to the risk to public health. There may come a time in our lives, we hope that we don't have that issue anymore, but unfortunately, COVID still is out there and we need to be cautious. I'll take the roll. So Ralph Severini.
Here.
Bob Nailberg.
Here.
Chris Byer.
I'm here.
And Carol Hazelton.
I'm finally here.
Good evening, Carol.
Hi.
So we have a quorum. Cameron is, and Polly is just about to join, so we have the legal team present. And I think we have the key staff members. Thomas is on, Tim's on. Okay, Kathleen, yeah, we've got, it appears as if we've got everybody. The only one I'm not seeing is Jan, and
Karen's here.
Okay. And at some point, we will need Wes when we get to his stuff. Okay. First item of business is approval of council minutes. We're going to defer the discussion on October 16, 2020 minutes. Ralph and Alicia are working on some changes and they weren't able to get them done prior to tonight's meeting, so we'll have to defer those to the next meeting for October 16, 2020. The next one is May 13th, 2021. And I'll open it to council for comment. I reviewed them and I'm okay with them, but see if anybody else has comment.
I do have a comment. I thought it was confusing that at the beginning, it showed 5 council members, then it showed 3. I'm aware that both Bob and Jerry were dismissed, but the chronological order of the numbers confused me. On page 18, there were 5 people, then it went down to 3. And then on line 17, and shoot, I didn't write down the page number, it said all members of the council. And I thought it was confusing because at one point we were 5 members and then at one point we were 3 members. So I can talk to Alicia about that. I just wanted to make a note that I thought it was very confusing that there were 5, then there were 3, and then the line that said all members of the council were in agreement or something, and it didn't say whether it was just the 3 or the 5.
So the weird thing with that meeting was because we were running so long, we jumped back and forth. And so I wasn't sure whether or not to just reorder the whole agenda, if I even could do that, or if I should, just keep it in the order that we went in, which is what made it so confusing. I agree, it was very, very confusing. And if you're not following exactly where it says, the next item went to item 6 or whatever, that it was really confusing. So maybe Polly can give me some, I don't know. Maybe Polly can give me some tips on if I can just reorder the agenda from what was posted. Because we did jump around.
Yeah, you can have the minutes should reflect the order it was actually discussed. And if that helps with the way that how the minutes come out. I mean, the minutes are just the record of the meeting, and so should just accurately reflect what happened. So if we did it in a different order, we don't need to keep that same order.
Okay.
For minutes.
Okay, so I can redo those so that it's a little less confusing if you like, and then we can put those to December as well.
Okay, I think it was page 19, line 17, when you said all members of the council were in agreement or something like that. I didn't write the whole sentence out, but maybe you could check that and just say which members were in agreement.
Could you tell me which page it was of the minutes, like at the bottom?
I think it's page 19. I have to go back and look at the minutes. I read them this afternoon.
Okay.
But I can let you know, Alicia, if that's okay.
Yeah. Or I could find it. It's just page 19 is.
I think it was page 19,
of the
line
PDF,
17.
of the PDF, page 19 of the minutes. It would be. Let's see where they were. Page 8 of 9.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think we can just mention at the beginning of the minutes, Alicia, that the agenda flow was modified and the minutes reflect the flow of the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Carol. I appreciate your feedback.
Okay.
Okay, then let's go on to a very exciting opportunity for us, which is the filling of a council vacancy. This vacancy has occurred when Jerry Dwinell resigned as part of his relocation out of Hideout and the state, as a matter of fact. And we've been looking for candidates ever since. We have two candidates come forward. One is Jonathan Gunn, and the second is Sherry Jacobs. So I'll invite each of them to chat with us briefly around what is driving their interest in working with the council, and then we can discuss who we think is the better fit. So, Mr. Gunn, if you're on, I don't see you as a name, so I'm not sure if you're on as another name or a phone number or what. So I don't quite know what to do there.
Mayor, hey, this is Chris. So sorry, Alicia, go ahead.
I was just going to say the same thing you were, I'm sure.
So this is Jonathan Gunn. Are you able to hear me?
We are.
Okay, good. Then I'm unmuted.
So go ahead and talk a little bit. The council's had a chance to see your resume, but it doesn't really talk to us about what you want to do for the town. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure, I'd be delighted. Thank you for the opportunity. You know, I'm a full-time resident here. This is my town. I chose this place of all the places that I could have lived. I chose Hideout. I chose it because of its inherent qualities. And so, you know, my drive here, my motive is to help make this the kind of place where all of us would like to live. You know, I'm semi-retired. I spend maybe 3 hours a week working, so I have lots of free time in which to dedicate to important things. And this is something I perceive as very important. After all, I live here. The town is growing, as everyone knows, by leaps and bounds. And everybody wants to make sure that it grows in a way that makes sense and preserves the basic Hideout values, you know, from openness to scenery and so on and so forth. And so my motivation here is simply to make a contribution. There's obviously a need. There's an opening on the council. As you can see, I have certain skills and experience, which I'm more than happy to elaborate on should anybody have any questions. But to directly answer your question, it's because I live here and I'd like to see and I'd like to use my training, education, experience to contribute to make it an even better place.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I hope that answers your question.
I'd like to see the council have any questions for Mr. Gunn.
Hey, Phil. Hi, John.
Good evening.
My understanding is you come from a legal background, which I think would be very beneficial to have on the town council. For maybe those who, okay, I see your resume is right up here. Have you done any type of community volunteer work as far as being on the town council before, or things like an HOA?
Sure. I was the president of an HOA when I lived in Champaign, Illinois. I was its first president when the developer turned it over to the, to the owners, the residents. And so there was a lot of startup work, as you probably well imagine, in getting, the HOA up, running, and gather, important feedback from the residents so we could move forward. When the HOA was handed over, there were a number of problems, among them erosion and some other things. And so we had to quickly had to get up and running and figure out what to do. And I led that effort as the president of the HOA.
Sounds familiar. That's probably some experience we could use. That's all I have.
Well, I'm happy to offer it.
Okay, thanks. Good question, Bob.
All right.
I have other relevant, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I was wondering if it's my turn to ask questions. But if you have something else to say, please go ahead.
Sure. If you scroll down to the bottom of my resume, you'll see that I have a number of certifications in the area of emergency preparedness, not just as a clinician, but the National Incident Management System, that's NIMS. And I have been through those courses and certified in 100, 200, 300, 400, and 700, which is, and that was necessary for me to give high-level government officials like the director of the Illinois Department of Public Health and the deputies advice on emergency management issues and that kind of thing.
Okay. Chris?
Yes, Mr. Gunn, we've had a chance to talk a few times prior to this, and I know that you've been a resident in Hideout for more than a year now. Is there anything in particular that you are most passionate about as far as where you want to see Hideout go, or how you want the council to operate, or things, any kinds of observations or maybe direction that you've contemplated since you've become involved with the town?
Sure. I guess if I were to try to rank those items, which I think is what you want me to do, I guess I would place number one at preserving the character of Hideout. It's kind of unique, frankly, and that's why I chose to move here from Chicago. And so I would like to be involved in preserving the unique character. Now, everybody knows it's going to grow, and it has to grow, and growth can be a good thing, but growth can also be a negative thing. So I would like to contribute towards the town growing while still maintaining its kind of small town feel. And that requires kind of a delicate balance between, necessary and preferential development and preserving the nature and the character of the town. So I guess that would be number one. Number two, I guess, like every other homeowner, I think it's important to preserve the property values of people that live here. And I guess from number three, I would like to help make it an attractive place for people that value these kinds of things. That is the core values of Hideout being, this balance between nature and beauty and a little bit of development.
Thank you. The other question that always comes to mind, which I think you already answered before I had the chance to ask it, which is, this is a second job for most of us. And, what kind of time do you have to be available, not just for these council meetings that we do, but, to perhaps participate in some committees and, be able to lend your expertise in other ways besides sitting in our public meetings?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, I'm semi-retired. I work about 3 hours a week, and I am here. This is my only home. I don't have a second home anywhere, so this is where I spend my time, except for when I visit my daughter, things like that. But so yeah, I have time that is available, and I'm perfectly willing to to donate or to give that time in order to make Hideout a better place. And to kind of make sure it grows in good directions and avoids some of the pitfalls that are out there. So yes, the short answer is I'm available and I'm willing. And to the extent that I have valuable experience or expertise, I'm more than willing to contribute it.
All right, thank you. Very encouraging.
Okay. Any other questions from council for Mr. Gunn? We can always come back to that. If that's okay, then we'll move on to our second candidate. Second candidate is Sherry Jacobs. Sherry is on the phone from someplace out of town, I believe. But Sherry, if you'd introduce yourself and talk a little bit about why you'd like to be involved with the council.
Yes, hi, everyone. I am calling in from Hawaii, actually. I'm hoping that my connection is good. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, sounds great. Sounds like
Okay.
you're right next door.
Great. Well, I've been here for lived here full time for about 1.5 years in Hideout. Been about 3 years in this area full time and 15 years part time. We moved here for some of the same reasons, of course, as Mr. Gunn. We love the views, but more than that, we discovered that we really love the people that we've met here. And I really would love being a part of the community in Hideout. I think we all have that same common goal of growing our town to be a real set part of the greater community. And that's something that caused me to want to be on the council. I know last year when we were going through a lot of the pros and cons with the annexation, several neighbors said to me, complaining about Hideout and what are we going to do and our property values. And my response was, if you have an issue with what's going on here, you should do something about it instead of complain. And I sort of wanted to put my money where my mouth was. I said, well, if I feel that way, I should be a part of the solution and help grow this town and give it a great reputation, have it become part of the greater community of Wasatch and Summit County. And so that's why I am here. I should have sent you a resume. I did not know that, but I am a graduate of Stanford University. My husband and I lived in Florida for 22 years, where we had a large catering company and event planning company. So I've been a businesswoman for a long time. Right now, I am a realtor in the area, so I'm very familiar with development and property values and wanting to maintain that for everyone. And I just feel that this would be a great opportunity to help improve the community and give it a great sense of, where everyone wants to live, promote the same values.
Thank you. Same question for council. Of those of you that have any questions for Ms. Jacobs or any follow-up information you'd like to have her talk about, now's your chance.
I'll ask the same question. Hi, Ms. Jacobs. I'm excited to hear that you have so much experience with the area and Park City and Wasatch County, Summit County, the real estate. It's all really important stuff. How are you working full-time currently? And by the way, I won't hold that against you if the answer is yes, because I work full-time as well.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I am working full-time. However, when I was in the catering business, full-time meant 70 to 80 hours a week. But now full-time doing what I'm doing now is more like 30 or 40 hours a week. And I find myself having a lot more time. I was part of the beginnings of the social committee in Hideout, which we met, I think, in February of 2020 and had all these wonderful plans for social events in Hideout. I think Carol was on that committee as well. Right. And then COVID happened and we never got to do anything. So I'm hoping that we can continue that. And I would love to put my time into things other than work for a change. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this as well.
Thank you. I know that it's hard to get a sense of purpose out of just, the jobs, your 9-to-5 job. I know I have that same feeling. So, having an opportunity to serve and to volunteer or help out in a public service capacity, especially right at home where you live, can be really very rewarding and challenging, but very rewarding, more rewarding than challenging.
I agree. Yeah. Also, we did build a house here in Hideout, so I went through that whole fun process, and we did enjoy it so much that we're actually doing it again. So maybe we're just a little bit crazy on that, but we're going to be living in Rustler, a townhome in the meantime. So we look forward to getting to know everyone in that side of town as well.
I'd ask, hi Sherry and Jonathan, this is Ralph speaking. I'd ask one question for both of you. Are there any particular issues that you deem really important for the town that you think you'd like to work on, or that's going to be a challenge that you'd like to contribute to?
Which of us would you like to?
Yeah, Sherry, go first, and then Mr. Gunn, you can follow.
Two things, actually. I feel like the town needs to really work on on its reputation as an actual town in the greater community, really have a part and a say in what's going on in the community around us and not just in Hideout. And secondly, also, we all know that there's a lot of development going on in the town, and it's not going to change anytime soon. We have to live with it, but I'd love to be able to work with the developers to make it more palatable for the residents that live in the areas that are being developed, so that it's safe and that the roads are safe, and you see the truck drivers driving really fast through town and on their phones, and just try to work with the developers to really make it more palatable for all the residents to have all this development happening.
Any thoughts on how you do that, Sherry?
Well, I'd love to meet with them, sit down with them and really talk about the issues and find a way that we can come up with some compromises before having to do any sanctions on any developers that don't follow the rules that we have.
Thanks.
And Mr. Gunn, your response to Mr. Severini's question.
Sure. I guess first, I should be candid. My first and foremost interest was the utility access easement that runs 16 feet behind my house, and I think I've been rather vocal about that. So I should be candid about that. But secondarily, and that's a small issue, obviously. But as a bigger issue, I think it's a question of development, balancing, and including some commercial kinds of things while maintaining the residential balance. Every town has to be fiscally sound, and so there needs to be some sort of revenue beyond property taxes. Otherwise, the residents have to bear that entire burden. And so, I would like to be involved in helping develop the right balance between the commercial and residential, so that the town can have enough funds to do all of the things that a great town needs to do. It's a complex business, no doubt. My personal approach, although I do have a litigation background, my personal preference approach is always the cooperative one. It seems to me that, sitting down, exchanging ideas, trying to understand the other side's perspective and trying to convey, whatever side I'm on, is a key approach. And so how would I go about do that, I guess, is the next question. And that is by involvement. Simply, it's important to understand all the perspectives. And in this context, there are many different perspectives from the each developer has their own perspective. Residents have different perspectives. There is a need for, in my opinion, for some level of some commercial development to augment revenues and frankly, for convenience of the residents, such as myself. So my approach to that would be to try to sit down and figure out, okay, where does each party stand? Where does each party have a contribution? And how can you fit that together into something that'll move the town in the direction that I think we all want to go?
Thank you.
Carol, any questions or anything you want to clarify?
No, I think pretty much they've answered my questions that other people have posed.
Okay.
So I do have a question. And that is, we've never had two candidates before us. We've always just had one person. So how do we go about choosing the next person to be on council with us?
So Carol, I've been through this before. When we had to fill Doug Edgerton's seat, we had 3 absolutely excellent candidates.
Right.
You know, it was very hard, but it's actually up to the council. It's up to us, the 4 of us, to choose, you know, from among the applicants tonight, and who, you know, who to welcome and swear in to become part of the council. So we have to discuss amongst ourselves and make that decision as council members. Did I say anything wrong there, Polly?
This is Cameron. I was just going to chime in. The statute requires a majority of vote from the council members that are present. And if it's a tie, that statute actually says the decision is made by lot. So I was sort of hoping that both candidates would be there and they could do a rock, paper, scissors if it came to that. But since they're absent, it would have to be like pick a random number or something like that.
And actually, Cameron, I think that because it says, and I haven't looked at this as closely as you have, but because it's the municipal legislative body, I think that the mayor would retain his tiebreak ability since he's part of that legislative body.
Yeah, if he's a council member and he's present, then it's going to be the majority of the members that are present. So I agree with that.
Okay, good. I'm glad we don't have to flip a coin or draw a lot, because we do have you know, if it does tie up, we do have a tiebreaker. Okay.
And so the other thing, Carol, and just as a reminder, everyone, you know, and this is not normally when decisions are made about personnel, they're typically made in a confidential type manner. But by law, we are required to, you know, talk about this in public and amongst ourselves in public and make the decision in public. So I know it feels a little bit awkward to say, you know, well, this person is, I think this person's stronger than that one for this reason. When they're sitting in the room, when the other person's sitting in the room, but unfortunately, that's kind of what we have to do.
Yeah, I agree. The statute requires that it be an open meeting. I think that's meant to maintain transparency.
So
Can I start? Be the icebreaker?
sure, Chris,
All right.
by all means.
I just want to say how delighted I am that we have, you know, 2 high quality candidates. This is actually thrilling because, you know, we've waited a while to be able to fill Jerry's seat, and to be able to have 2, you know, what I consider good quality candidates who are both very articulate and are, you know, both seem very invested in living here in Hideout. They do have different backgrounds though, you know, we're forced to compare and contrast. So I'll just, you know, summarize that. And I hope you don't mind if I call you by your first names. You know, Sherry's kind of more objective is helping Hideout with our reputation and develop, you know, doing safe development, while having a local real estate background and knowing who all the players are. Contrasted with Jonathan, who has a legal background, which is really valuable for the council, because you know, we have our town attorneys, but you know, having that kind of a background, I had always wished I had. Once I became a council member, I, you know, wished I had paid more attention in civics class, number 1, and then wished I'd studied law, number 2, because what we do feels like every single meeting is we are, you know, making laws in the town. And the actions that we take, have legal consequences and such. So, I'll have to say that although I appreciate and value, both candidates, I personally would, I think I'd, love to see us have someone with a legal background join the council.
Thank you, Chris. Ralph, how are you feeling about this?
Sorry, was that to me, Bill?
Yeah, I was just asking, where you are around our two candidates and
Well, I'd say I totally agree with Chris. These are two terrific candidates, and it's going to be hard to create a choice between them. I think I agree on the legal side, and I also think, and I think Mr. Gunn has been vocal about some changes, and that's a good thing. So, on the other hand, I also know Sherry, and I know some of the folks that she's helped and who have given her personal plaudits. So I respect that as well. And I think working with the developers is going to be important. Both of them have great backgrounds, it looks like, from what I know from what I've read. Maybe I'm less concerned about the legal part, but I do think that is important. I'm not sure I'm going to make my decision based upon that, but more on their contributions. And because we do have two good attorneys on our team. But so I don't know. So maybe I'm taking a slight counterpoint to that as just from the law aspects. But all I can say, Jonathan, from my view, you've been totally articulate, and I never make up my mind until the last moment. But I would say there's other positions in town here. I think there's openings as well. We've just formed an economic development committee. We may have some additional openings on the planning board. So either one of those would be great additional starting points for the person that doesn't get the position. So I would really encourage that. I know myself, Jerry Donnell, Kurt Shadle, et cetera, we all started out on the planning board here, and it gave us a great background in the developments, the zoning laws. We got to change some of that. All I'm saying is there's other opportunities, and they're good opportunities to really contribute. So, well, thank you both. I thought you were both tremendously articulate. You have great backgrounds. There's no bad choice here. It's the hard choice is, saying no to someone, so to speak, just like when I'm doing some hiring. So thank you both.
okay. So we'll eventually come back to you, Ralph. So just be prepared. Bob?
Yeah, I would probably echo what Chris bravely started out with, since she volunteered to go first. Now, I've known Sherry for many years. She's been a great friend and a great neighbor. And what she didn't tell any of you, her and her husband, Jack, are both phenomenal cooks. Then again, so's the mayor. I don't know if he told you any of that. But one of the things I noticed when I volunteered to be a town council and still working full time was this is a position that does take a bit of a commitment, and I find that sometimes can be a challenge with a full-time schedule. And we have two very good choices. I think the fact that Mr. Gunn is effectively retired and also brings a legal background, I think are two very valuable things that should be considered. But again, there's no bad choice here, only good choices. Thanks.
I guess I get to go last. And again, I want to thank both the candidates. I think they both have wonderful credentials and interests in the town. This is really awkward. It's really difficult for me. I was unaware that we had to make a decision tonight. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to really meet with them in person. So it's hard to just glean what they're like just from phone calls. One of the comments I do want to make is that our council, since I've been on it, which is almost 2 years, that there's been some turnover. And I was looking at the seniority, and all of a sudden I realized that I'm the second longest person on the council, which shocked me. That was in something that's coming up later this evening. So that the turnover is considerable. So there's a chance that maybe one of the council members at some point in the near future will have to resign from the council. I mean, I'm not saying anybody is right now, but it does happen, so that there would be a vacancy then as well. So I hope that we can use both of you. I think it's great. And that's really what I have to say. I'm still trying to make up my mind as to which one, but I know we will have a vote in a minute. So I just hope they will continue to get involved in Hideout and stay involved.
Thanks, Joe. Okay,
So Mayor, can I ask a question to the two candidates?
sure.
Okay. So as a council member, you do represent, you are elected, or in this case appointed, to represent, your constituents, which are all the voters in town, but it's actually really everyone, even the people that work here, that live here, with second homes and don't get the opportunity to vote. We still, are here to represent everyone. We also, on the flip side, we have to interact with town staff. Sometimes there are tough issues that come up, and where the public, wants one thing, but the town staff, their jobs are to do, something else, we'll say. So I know we've had, and both Jonathan and Sherry talked about safe development and traffic. I think those big, dump trucks that sometimes speed through town are a real concern. So my question is, when you've got, kind of a dissonance between what staff does and what the people are asking for, how would you handle that? I'll give you the example. The example can be the speeding dump trucks through town, and what can and cannot be done by the town. So if I can open that up, and I'll ask Jonathan to address that first, if you will.
Sure. Well, as I understand, the council has a duty to the town, and so it's much like a fiduciary duty that an attorney owes to the client. And so, the key is what's right for the town, and then that can be difficult. And there are always going to be differing opinions. Sometimes there are going to be strong opinions. And so where there is a problem like that, my number one approach is to, again, I think I mentioned this earlier, sit down and try to understand each of the perspectives. That's got to be the starting point. And then, once you understand each of the perspectives, then it's time to explore, well, what are the options, that are presented given, the realistic constraints that let's face it, we all face and the town faces. And out of that, try to find some solutions. Sometimes that means persuading one side or the other, but always trying to keep an eye out for what is the right thing for the town. And that can be a lot easier said than done, obviously, but that's got, I think it's important for a councilman to keep their eye on the ball. What is right for the town? And so anytime there's a conflict like that, ideally, through a little dialogue, you can come to some mutual agreement. And when you can't, then you have to fall back on what is the right thing for the town. But you also have to recognize that people continue to live here, the staff continues to work here, and we want all that to remain the same. So the solution needs to have something in it for everybody, while still being the guiding principle at the bottom end, at the end of the day, has got to be what is right for the town. And sometimes that's, some people are going to be unhappy with that. And the question is, how do you go about that? You make people feel like they were listened to, that their opinions are important, that they were taken into account, and that the reason for whatever the decision is always what's best for the town. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you. Sherry, would you answer now?
Sure. I think Jonathan's absolutely right. It's all about communication. If there's a rule in the town about speeding through town, then it needs to be enforced. And I think that's part of the job of the council, is to enforce that rule and talk to the parties who are involved and who have that responsibility, whether it's having more police presence or more enforcement, whatever we can do to enforce the rules that we've put into place. And it might make some people unhappy about it. It might make the developer unhappy if we're constantly on him about his speeding drivers. But, if those drivers cause an accident, that's even worse. So it has to be about, enforcing the rules that we have and making sure everybody understands why we have those rules.
All right, thank you.
Well, team, are we ready to lean one way or the other?
I am ready.
Okay,
Yeah, I've made up my mind as well.
okay. Bob, since you said you were ready first, would you be willing to state for the record your position?
Yeah, given Mr. Gunn's experience, I would be in favor of appointing him.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
Yes, I agree with Bob. Although it's a difficult decision, I will vote for Mr. Gunn.
Okay. Ralph, I told you I'm coming back.
Yeah, very difficult decision. I'm going to go in the opposite direction and cast a vote for Sherry. I do know that she's gotten a lot of plaudits and accolades from her local neighbors, and I thought that was a good sign. I think she's got a good background. Jonathan, you have a tremendous background as well, based upon what Chris and Bob just said. So there's really just no bad choice. But I'll definitely want to give Sherry a vote. So make it a little bit tougher on Carol here.
All right. This is going to present a problem. I guess not a problem, but I'm going to go with Sherry as well. Just because I have worked with her briefly, and I think that she really has the town interest at heart with she just really wants to help Hideout as I've worked with her. So I vote for Sherry.
Wow.
So
And it's back to you, Phil.
Mr. Mayor, you get to make the choice.
Thanks, team. Well, that's why I'm here. So, wow. I guess I would like to say, much as everyone else has, that, we're blessed to have two solid candidates who really want to be here and work with the town. I'm excited to see the interest, and in fact, I hope we get more over time, because there's many more things that we want to work on as a community. So again, while this is a tough decision, and I hope that this, whatever decision, whatever I'm about to say, doesn't scare the other person off from wanting to be involved. We'd love to have both candidates working with the town in some capacity. And as Ralph mentioned, there are openings, including, I think, one right now on the planning commission. So, that said, I guess I am going to also lean lean to Sherry. I think that I think the kind of stuff that we're trying to do in resurrecting, for lack of better terminology, the town's reputation is critical to our long-term success. It's a key thing that Jan and the staff works on, and trying to build back relationships across the boundaries and borders that surround us. And I think that Sherry's network is going to help us there. No disrespect to Mr. John, who has a fabulous resume, as I said, and something we'd love to have you continue to work with us, even if it's not as a council member, but certainly as a community member. There's a number of ways you can do that. So I'm voting for Sherry, and I guess that means Sherry is our new council member. So I guess, Polly, does that qualify as the process, or Cameron, and we now need to get Alicia to swear in Sherry?
Yeah, I think that you want to just do just kind of like an official, someone should make a motion to nominate council member, and then you guys can do a vote, and then Sherry can, and then Alicia can swear in, do the swearing in.
Okay. So a motion to appoint Sherry Jacobs as a council member filling the term vacated by Jerry Dwinell.
So moved.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Ralph? How do you
Yes.
vote? Yes. Chris?
Yes.
Okay. Bob
Yes, welcome aboard.
and Carol?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Motion passed. And now, Alicia.
Okay, congratulations, first of all, Sherry.
Wow, thank you. That was unexpected.
I don't know if there's any possible way you can turn your camera on.
Oh, boy. Well,
I know. I know you're probably getting ready to go, but I just need you to. Perfect. Hi.
Hey, chair.
Okay, if you can just raise your right hand for me and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Sherry Jacobs,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Perfect. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Welcome,
Congratulations.
Sherry. Thank you, Jonathan, very much. We really do appreciate your interest and involvement.
My pleasure, Sherry. Congratulations.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan, from Ralph here. And don't go away, please. How's that?
Yes. Please don't go away. Really look at that vacancy on the planning commission.
We'll find something for you to do. Trust us.
So can I just say that when we had to choose a replacement for Doug Edgerton and we had 3 outstanding candidates, eventually all 3 became council members. Right, Ralph? Do you remember that?
I do, but that was so long ago, Chris, I'd almost like to forget it. So, yeah, no, I do remember that. That was, just seems like, it was years ago, wasn't it? Or at
It was
least-
Kurt, Ralph.
Yeah, me and Jerry,
and
that's
Vitas.
all 3 of us, and we all came
Oh,
from
and Jerry,
the
sorry.
planning board. And so I was going to suggest whoever again, came out on the wrong side. And I don't think there's a wrong side here. Get on that darn planning board. We could really use you,
Right. And you all forget that just for 3 or 4 months, I was on planning commission.
That's right, Carol.
We all started there.
That's right.
Okay, well, thank you all very much. I know this is not an easy process to have these kind of discussions in a public forum, and it's not something that any of us are used to. So I appreciate the approach that all of you have taken in the way in which you've dealt with this. It's, as I said, it's a very tough thing to talk about people in front of people. And I appreciate the professionalism that you all used this evening. So thank you. So Sherry's going to be with us for a little bit, but she also has a plane to catch. So we're not going to have Sherry for the rest of the evening. But while she can, she'll be with us as a council member. And Sherry, just let us know when you've got to pull the plug.
Will do. Thank you.
So the next item is a public hearing. It's a continued discussion and possible approval of the official zoning map of the town of Hideout. And for that, I want to turn it over to Thomas.
Hi, Mayor. Yes.
And I guess I'll pull this up. Are you seeing your staff report?
I am indeed. Yes.
Okay,
Thanks.
so please take us through this before we and the council go through it before we open it up for public input.
Sure. So as you know, we've been working with the Planning Commission for a few months trying to get to do research, to analyze and pull together the most accurate information to create a zoning map that is ready for ratification by you all. I should let you know that to the best of our knowledge, our research, this reflects what is on the ground right now, with the exception of the 4 bullet points there. And I'll walk through them real quickly. Deer Mountain affordable housing looks like it had been zoned as maybe single family residential. Again, we had some conflicting background mapping, but we're recommending that be zoned medium density because it's more reflective of what is on the ground. Lakeview Estates was illustrated as, I think, residential single family. Based on our research, that was actually rezoned on June 27th in 2019 to residential medium density as well. And so we want to reflect those conditions and that rezone that took place at town council. And the other 2 are, Mr. Gunn alluded to it tonight. There was some right-of-way designation clarification that we wanted to make regarding access utility easements versus roads. That was clarified on this map. And the one right above that was some land that is potentially being dedicated to the town just south of Deer Springs. That area offers a little bit of opportunity moving into the parkland, the park area. It offers a little bit of opportunity potentially for neighborhood commercial down the road, given that was so important, not only in the general plan process, but expressed by all of you over you and the Planning Commission over the course of the past few months. And so those would be the only 4 potential changes that we would recommend. Other than that, again, conditions reflect what is on the ground, what's been approved. And so we took this map to the Planning Commission, and on October 21st, they made a positive recommendation for ratification by town council. So that is what you see before you tonight.
Thomas, can I offer a couple of comments?
Yes.
So one is the land at the entrance to the state park. I think we need to be, we need to spend some time with the tax authorities before we decide, make those decisions, because I think if we zone it commercial, the county may expect us to pay property tax because they see it as revenue generating. The town can certainly own land as long as it's used for public service type stuff. But if we're generating revenue, then I think it becomes taxable. And as we don't actually have anything going on there yet, I don't want to be stuck with a tax bill. We don't have to. So before we decide to paint that pink as it shows here, I think we need to do a little bit more research. So
Okay, that makes
Janice
sense.
been doing some work on that as well.
Okay.
I can get
And
with
then-
Jim. I thought that municipal property was generally not taxed. I could see if you have a business, there might be exemptions for that, but I don't think there would be a property tax. There might be a tax on the business itself, but I haven't explored that issue specifically. So I can look into it and work with Jan on that.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. I just don't know what triggers it for the county. I don't know if it's a zoning decision or, an actual investment. I mean, they initially have already asked us to pay property tax on the maintenance building, even though it's not being used for commercial purposes. They're treating it as a commercial building, and so we've had to try and work through that with them. The second question I have is you're reflecting Deer Springs as mountain, and yet we've granted Deer Springs this triangle. Oh, you can see my cursor here and this side of it. They were approved before my administration, but they certainly aren't approved at the mountain density.
That's correct. I could not find anywhere that those had been rezoned. And so when I dug a little bit deeper, what I did find is that those maintained mountain residential as their base density, but there was a planned performance development overlay, I think it was called, pursuant to the ordinance. And so that overlay granted them additional densities by way of their review and approval at both Planning Commission and the Town Council. And so,
Okay, I understand. So they basically, I remember that they were granted their density because they brought certain amenities.
right, there was a park and some other things. And that's
Right.
reflected in the legend on the left-hand side, that kind of cross-hatching in brown. You could see it over there.
Okay, that's what that is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Claim also had a similar planned performance development overlay as well.
Okay. So those aren't lot lines.
No, those are not lot lines. And just to Councilmember Severini's point, I think at the last meeting, we did make the roads brown and the lot lines are black. I think it's a little easier to see. We're starting to run out of colors on the map, but I think that we made it a little bit easier to see.
Okay.
So generally, that's what you see in most of the map, but in that particular area,
Okay. So they're mountain with the increased density due to the meeting the requirements for plan performance. Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you for clarifying that.
And that applies to Deer Springs as well, because you were just talking about Deer Waters and Claim.
And you're showing it as Deer Springs as well, although I thought
Yes.
they did change their zoning.
And I think that, I'm trying to remember the exact review. I think it was also the PPD, the Planned Performance Development Overlay. And so it maintained mountain zoning as well.
Okay.
But it did have that overlay with the density allowances and the amenities.
Got it.
And Thomas, the two R-Spa areas, they just seem so disconnected. I don't know how we ever, fill into that whole process historically, I guess. I don't know if there's anything better to do with that, but my number one question was, I know I was speaking with Nate not too long ago about the big pink piece, the commercial piece, and he said we have another piece on the other side of 248. Is that reflected in that kind of triangle that I'm looking at, which is right above the lower R Spa piece
Right
of
there.
property?
Right
Is
there.
that correct?
Yeah, that's it right here, Ralph. I don't know if you can see my cursor.
Yeah, that's what I'm pointing to.
Yeah.
And is that on this side of the Jordanelle side of 248? It's really
No, it's
hard
on the
to.
uphill side.
Okay,
Ralph.
that's what I thought. Okay, and that's our only other piece from what
Yeah.
I know then. Those are the two pieces, correct?
Yeah,
Okay. Not much, huh?
no, not much. Well, I want to thank Thomas and Polly and the group that worked on this to get to the point where we actually have, I think we have the map the way it should read. That it and is required, we are required to have adopted this some time ago, but it's taken us a while to get to the bottom of it. I think the team is the staff team that worked on this is all aligned that this is the one. Obviously, if we make changes in the future, we can revise it, but we have to have something as a baseline. And this is a fantastic piece of work that actually is the baseline, and I think meets the needs of both the town and what the developers are all aware of how they got to where they are. So.
And just a little aside, I did receive an email this evening at 5:30 from Jared Field on behalf of Mustang, who said that he wasn't going to be able to make it tonight, but I have his permission to convey to the council that Mustang has no objection to the proposed zoning map. Thank you for considering the comments we've made over the past few meetings on that item.
Oh, wow. Holy moly. I'm glad that's on the record. So this is a public hearing. And so first, let's see if there's any other questions from council, and then we'll open it to for public input.
And Mayor, just one real quick thing. I think that Abby at TO Engineering should be recognized for the mapping work that she really helped us with. She was a star.
Okay. Thanks, Abby. Although I don't think she's on tonight. There are TO people that are on, so please convey our thanks. Okay.
Thomas, Mayor, could you zoom in and just look at that little teeny green triangle that is just north of Shoreline Phase 1?
Yeah, that little green triangle right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is that's Venturi, I believe. That little triangle there is the Venturi property.
That's correct.
And so it is not part of the R Spa because it was not owned by Mustang at the time of the creation.
That has a MIDA boundary around it, right? Am I reading that wrong?
No, the purple is not the MIDA boundary.
Oh, then what is the purple? Because the legend says MIDA boundary.
The purple is the edge of the purple is the edge of the R Spa, and because that property does say MDA, not MIDA. That's MDA, Master Development Agreement boundary.
Okay.
MIDA is blue.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So because that property is surrounded on all sides by the MDA, it looks like it's being the piece is being carved in, but it's actually being carved out.
Okay. Thank you. You answered my question.
One thing I'd like to know, and I don't think we're going to do it at this meeting, but be great to understand who owns the surrounding open lands. You know, there's 4 or 5 pieces here that joined. And I know when I was on the planning board, we had some of those owners come in and talk about possible annexation with the town. Thomas, again, wouldn't do this at this meeting, but do we have a good idea of who the landowners are surrounding all the kind of the gray pieces around the town? Maybe I'll separately have a conversation with you.
Absolutely, Ralph. I know many of them personally.
Yeah. And we can do that. We can kind of create a map that illustrates that as well.
That would be terrific.
But yeah, that's sort of a different subject than tonight, but we can do some work on that for you. Both the parts that are inside Hideout that are not in the MDA area, and as well as some of the stuff that's inside our annexation area, which we'll be talking a little bit about later anyway. So, okay. So again, this reflects the conditions for which the town was created and where they are today, along with Thomas's comments on the four dots that he's got here, the 4 comment dots in here. We've agreed that we're going to take a look at the town-owned land as far as the zoning, to make sure that we're not positioning ourselves for a tax liability before we actually, and I don't, adopting this probably, I mean, this, because we haven't actually changed the zoning for that. Does this mean we're changing the zoning if we adopt this?
Yes, you'll be, I mean, it's gone through the required legal process to change the zoning. We've held the public, we've gave the notice for the public hearing and all that. So it will change. What you're adopting is how the map is shown, except that if you wish to remove that commercial, you would amend, that would be your amendment to your motion. And when we want to change that, we'll go through the same process again by posting public notice, and then unless you want to, punt it one more month and we can get that answer, those questions answered at your next meeting. Those are your 2 alternatives.
Okay.
And can I just mention one other thing? One thing that we did present to the Planning Commission was just an internal document that reflected the town's understanding of the density pods that are in the RSPA area. And that was kind of more for just our own planning purposes and just to try to reflect what is actually there, but it's not part of the official zoning map. Mustang did have some issues with it. We still have not met with them about it, although we've offered a couple times, but we can continue to do that. But it's not something that requires council approval. But we just wanted you to know that we have that document, and it's for our purposes.
And the other thing is that this should say Ross Creek, not Rossi Creek, I think.
Right, you're right.
I think that's got an extra letter, but I think it's a PDF, so I can't fix it per se. But so we will need to fix that. So how would you like to do this, council? Do you want to wait till next month so we can clarify the town land zoning, or do you want to do this and modify it and come back and change the zoning when we have clarity in the future?
Next month.
Okay. It is a public hearing. I do need to open it up and get some input if there is any, and then we can revisit and decide. But Okay, so I'll open it for public comment. The way that works is on the Zoom, there's a place where you can raise your hand if you have a comment about the zoning map. So you would do that at the bottom of your Zoom screen or on the side, depending how you've got it set up. There's a place that says raise hand. If you are exclusively on the phone, then you would need to star 6, I believe. Alicia, is that right?
Yeah, they'll have to do *9 first to raise their hand, and then I can unmute them with *6.
Okay, *9 to raise your hand. So there's a raised hand right there. And whoever it is you just muted. There you
That
go.
was there.
So whoever's phone number ends with 005, hopefully that's not a license to kill. Raise your hand. I mean, go ahead with your comment.
Thank you. This is Jonathan Gunn. First off, with respect to the map, I see that the utility easement or emergency egress road, as has been variously referred to, has now been, separated by a different color from the roads. And so first I wanted to say thank you for that. And then from there, I do have a question. That pathway that runs roughly from along the eastern border of the Jordanelle Reservoir, and it's now designated in gray on the map. It is in the legend. It says access easement, and I'm hoping to clarify. Does that mean utility access easement? Does that mean utility easement / emergency egress road? What exactly does that legend mean? As you know, I've raised various comments at various points about that, so I'm keenly interested in what exactly the designation for that pathway is going to be.
No, thanks for that. That is an emergency access easement and utility access easement. That is how that is thought of on this map. That's
Terrific. Thank you.
Okay.
So should we be stating that, Thomas, as opposed to just for clarity?
Yep, I can state that.
Thank you.
Well, that resolves my issue. Thank you very much for allowing me to raise the issue and get the clarification.
Okay. Other public comment, again, raise your hand. And if you're on the phone, apparently it does work. *9 to raise your hand, and then we can unmute you and let you comment if you're on the phone. Otherwise, use your Zoom, raise your hand if you've got a comment. Okay, I don't see any other hands, so we'll close public input. And again, so Bob has weighed in on deferring till next month so we can get the zoning tax question resolved. Does anybody else have a desire to do it any other way on the council?
No, I agree. I think waiting another month and getting that clarification
All right.
makes sense.
So we are going to continue this item to a date certain, which is December. What is the next council meeting? Do you, I gotta pull my phone up, sorry.
It's December 9th.
It's the 9th.
December 9th, okay, so we'll
December 9th.
continue it to December 9th. The December 9th council meeting. Okay, thank you. Okay. Wow, we're all the way up to getting ready to start the meeting. after 2 hours. So the next item is public input. Again, the process is, this is anything that's not on the agenda tonight. You raise your hand and to talk about any other issue that we're not covering this evening that you want the council to be aware of, concern you may have, or whatever. Please keep your comments to a minute and a half or so we can keep moving. And again, the process is, a Zoom hand raise. I see one. I see where it is. There it is. Chris, are you raising your hand?
I am, but I don't have to go first if there's someone else.
It's quite okay. By all means, go ahead. You had the first hand, so.
Yep, hi, thank you so much. So I've been, thinking a lot about our dark sky ordinance and knowing that we had started this process a while back. This might be a question for Mayor Thomas. Do we have any traction on that current lighting conditions study, as well as, observations that need to be taken with and without snow?
I think that I think our deadline on the RFP posting was November 12th. And so we've got a couple of more days before we hear anything. And I don't know if Alicia has seen anything through the planning.org RFP process, because it went through, I think, your email, but I don't think we do yet. But a lot of people tend to wait until the very last minute if they are going to submit.
Okay, so there's an RFP. I didn't even realize that. So we have a few more days before the responses are due. Okay, thank you.
Right. So we posted it, so we're waiting. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Carol?
She's not, Carol, I think you're on mute.
There you go.
Okay. I just wanted to make a thank you to a reporter who is on this call, and that is Rick Bruff. He is retiring in 2 days from his job with KPCW, and he's been on many of our meetings, and I'd just like to say thank you very much for the coverage he's given us.
Thank you, Carol. Congratulations, Rick. Enjoy your retirement.
Yep.
Maybe you can move to higher in the council. All right, Ralph.
Yeah, since we're all raising hands here, I guess I'll be the third party to do it here. I just wanted to say that we now have 3 members of our Economic Development Committee, Craig Duper, Scott Davis, and Keith Marmer, all terrific background folks, one from the investment community, one from the University of Utah, who runs their economic development, Keith, and Scott, who's an entrepreneur, business owner. I just wanted to say that I think we're far enough. We're getting into some meaty areas, and Jan's been, really been the foundation and leader of our group now so far. So thought we'd have to spend some time on the next meeting in December before we hit the January timeframe to introduce those 3 people and what we're trying to accomplish, what kind of vision we're painting, and what any insights we could get from the council as well, but mostly just to socialize what we're initially trying to accomplish. And so I just thought I'd share that with the council. And then just to make sure that we get it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Thanks, Ralph, and thanks to the committee for the work they've done. I'm hearing really good things. Alicia, can you make a note to add that to the December town council session?
You bet.
Thank you. All right, if there's no other public input, then we'll close public input portion and move on to the base of the agenda. The first item, Jan, do you want to kick this off? You've been doing a lot of work on this, and I have the PDF available, but I don't want to just bring it up without some introduction. So. Jan? You there, Jan?
Sorry, I'm chatting with McKay on the other line. We're really fortunate, I believe, to have such excellent skill developer working with the town, and he and his partner are on the line. And Alicia, I'm wondering if you can you turn on the video for both Todd and McKay? And I think they need to press *6 if I'm correct. McKay and Todd have developed the Traverse Mountain project near the point of the mountain, and many of you may be familiar with that. We've been working for several months, and the Christiansens have been just a total joy to work with. And I'll just let McKay take it from here.
Great. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can, and we see you. Do you want to present, or do you just want me to put your proposal up for you?
Would you mind putting it up for me, Mr. Mayor?
Not at all. I can do that. Give me 1 second to get to this. Let's see if I can make this a little bigger. So, this where you want to start? This one? Are you seeing this?
Let's see. Yep, that's great. That's perfect.
So, just so the council knows, this is a property on the uphill side of town that belongs to David Salzman at the moment, unless maybe it belongs to you now.
Not quite yet.
But anyway, and in that property is a large single family home and a lot of acreage, and Mr. Salzman had bought that actually before the town of Hideout was formed. He was one of the original signers of the document to create Hideout. But you know, as life goes on and things change, you know, his family has decided it's not what they want to retain for the long term, and they've been looking for an opportunity to sell the property. And as Jan mentioned, Mr. Christensen and his partners have been working hard on this. This is not, just as a reminder to everybody, this is not an approval. All right, this is a concept plan that they wanted to share with council. They're well aware that it has to go through planning commission and town council, you know, the normal process for approval. But they wanted to kind of share the concept and let us know what they're thinking about doing up there and get some input from council on whether or not we think it's an interesting concept. So.
And as the lawyer, I need to just jump in and just reiterate what the mayor just said, that this isn't, you know, any kind of official application at this point. This is just to get a general input, but none of this is binding. So I know that has been conveyed to the applicants or the developers, but they're not applicants as of yet. But we just I want to put that on the record that this is not binding in any way for them.
Thank you, Polly. So with that caveat, tell me when to change pages, but go right ahead, Mr. Christensen. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind, would you go to that second slide? It's in color. It might be a little bit easier for everyone to see. There you go. And first, we wanted to thank you, Polly and Mr. Mayor, for the explanation. And you're exactly right. We haven't made a formal application yet. We would like to get into make an application soon. Prior to that, we just wanted to basically have a sit down and talk with you and you know, and really in some ways echo what Jonathan and Sherry said and in that pretty intriguing vote that you guys just took place on voting in a council member. But really what we want to do is have a meeting where we're able to get input from the council members and share with you what our vision of this property is, and also take your feedback and try to incorporate it into a plan that Hideout as a city and as a town feels really, really proud of and happy to be a part of their town. We've been working on this for a long time. I actually, my family was working on several other properties within Hideout and just weren't able to come to terms with the seller. So we've been spending a lot of time with Jan and with the mayor on different issues. And we're finally introduced to Murray, who happens to be on the call also and represents the seller and has been an absolute and total gentleman throughout this process and has been wonderful to work with. But we feel like we've become very acquainted with the town of Hideout. We love it. We think it has some of the most beautiful, captivating views in the state. Looking back across Jordanelle to Deer Valley and the peekaboos that you get to Timpanogos, we just think it's a beautiful, like gorgeous town, and the staff and everybody at Hideout has been wonderful to work with, and so we're excited about the prospect of working with you. In the process of meeting with the mayor and with some of your staff with Jan, we came away with every time you look at a piece of property, we have things that we know that we need to do and need to accomplish, and also things that we feel like will work within the market, but also, and sometimes even more importantly, things that the town would like to see happen in their community. And as long as those things mesh with the market, we love it and we want to run with it because we do want to create a community that the city can be proud of. So as a part of this plan, and maybe. And I know you have a long agenda in front of you, so I'll just do a quick summary, and Todd, my partner, can jump in at any moment and add to. I'll give a brief description of what it is that you're looking at here, and then any questions that you have, please feel free to ask us so long as you have time permitting. But really what we're trying to accomplish is the best way to think of it would be like Tuahay without a golf club, without a golf club membership. We want it to be a highly amenitized community that has the same type of social amenities that you would see at Tuahay. We've got the pond in the middle. We've got pickleball courts, a pool. What you're not seeing that needs to be included on here is a clubhouse that would include weight room, yoga studio, spa facilities. And most of that is going to be centered. Most of those type of amenities are going to be centered around, again, this plan is conceptual and will likely change with planning commission input and with your input, but would be centered around that pond area. The facility that you see right by the pickleball court is actually the existing home. I don't know if you've been up on the property. We would love to take all of you up on the property when we have a moment. Yes, the mayor's got his cursor over the top of that. That's the existing home. It's a beautiful 13,000, almost 14,000 square foot home. It was built 30 years ago almost, and was remodeled in 2008. and it needs some work, but it's a beautiful, beautiful home. We'd like to turn it into a bed and breakfast. That's our plan so far. Have a restaurant up there and operate it like a bed and breakfast. The clubhouse would be located somewhere close to that, probably on the other side of those pickleball courts. The other thing that we see that you probably see is the very, very large building at the top. That is one of the high points on the property. The hotel, it's a 144 bed hotel, which we envision also having a restaurant, and would probably work with it. You know, we've got quite a bit of fall in through that section, but would have the hotel probably terrace down and, you know, be built into the mountainside in some way. So it's not quite so imposing, but we'll work with the grade and just take advantage of the views. It's really hard to see. But if we were looking at a topo, the distance of fall between the foundation of the hotel and those roughly 6 larger, or like, you know, smaller buildings built in and around it, you've got about anywhere between 50 to 80 feet of fall between the hotel and there. So everybody, virtually every unit up here, if done right and developed right, will not obstruct the view of really anybody else, with the exception of some places towards the back of the development. Those 6 buildings that you see there, so that's a 144 bed hotel, and then we have the condos. That's what the 6 larger buildings that you see there. Yes, that the mayor's got his cursor over. That is, we call that the big house. It's a really fascinating concept, but those are also basically condos, and we can get into, we'll get into furthering obviously the architectural design on all of this, but can be pulled into the hotel in a similar way that you see like Hotel Park City, where you have a main lodge that operates as your main lodge, and then several out parcel buildings that also get pulled into that into the development. And that's another 144 units. We anticipate the bed and breakfast right now, the home, if I'm not mistaken, has about 10 bedrooms. We'd like to expand it to 20, maybe a little bit more. Right now we've got 20 beds in there. So you'd have roughly 308 total, for rent condotel properties, including the bed and breakfast. And then the balance of the development is made up of a couple different product types. You've got the single family homes sites that range anywhere from 1/3 of an acre up to about an acre on the far east end. They've got some beautiful plateaus up there that have, again, breathtaking views of Timpanogos. There's 6 or 7 different product types. We've got townhomes on the far north end. Then we have what we call casitas that are built in and around that's right there, built in and around the pond. Those are the equivalent of what you would see in Promontory, what they call like their trapper cabins. The villas would be a step up from that. You can see kind of the property lines on the villas. And those are very similar to also at Promontory, almost like their ranch club cabins or golf club cabins, or like a little bit maybe like Whispering Hawk at Tuhey. And then the lodges would then be a step up from that. And those are really designed, it sits out kind of on the leading edge of the property, units that will have a lot of glass and take it, a little bit larger unit that will just take advantage of the stunning views that you have out there. Throughout the entire community, we'll have a hierarchy of trails, something that, and Todd and I can get into our background. We develop a lot of master plan communities that are several, got one in Utah County that is, over 3,000 acres, well, roughly 3,000 acres. Many that we've developed over the course of our careers. Todd his background, he comes from Colorado, has developed many master plan communities out there also. But, typically what we do is we have a trail system with a hierarchy of trails, some that are paved, others that are not. And the idea is that we want to make sure that everybody in the community, every unit in the community has the opportunity, that connectivity is essential. that people have, they feel like they're a part of a community and get from one area to the next, either by riding their bike or walking on a trail. And so that's an important part of what it is that we'll do. There's a pavilion that you can kind of see in the very middle. There's an area that mounds up kind of by the villas. Yeah, right in through there. That looks small to scale, but we plan on doing some type of large pavilion out there where you can, sit up, have s'mores, barbecue, sit around a fire pit, check out the views. And so that's pretty much where we're at on the development right now. Todd, if you've got anything that you want to add that I've missed in terms of describing our concept plan, feel free to jump in. But no, go ahead, bud.
I was just going to say, no, you did a great job of clarifying and presenting the vision that we've got. I think, one, we appreciate everyone, giving us a few minutes tonight to discuss it and present it. Obviously conceptual in nature. However, we think this has been well thought through, and we try and be very intentional and thoughtful in the decisions we make when we design and build communities. And, we think there's a lot of opportunities here to do some really special things with the amenities and the open space and the trails and the product itself. Generally speaking, towns like Hideout in the past have gone towards the higher end, bigger lots, and it gets very monotonous, and it brings in one type of buyer and one type of buyer only. And so this provides a few different product types and a few different price points that really can create some variety and also can bring some mass in there to support some of the commercial. I know that's a big part of Hideout and Hideout's future. Is where's the commercial coming and how do we support that? And so we want to be a part of that solution, and we welcome your feedback and welcome the opportunity to work with you guys to develop a world-class community here that hopefully we'll have everyone else talking about.
And sorry, Todd, let me add one other thing. Consistent with developments like Promontory or Tuhey, we'll have entry monuments for each one of the villages, entry monuments at the entrance to the development. Signage will be similar, lighting similar. At least this is how we envision it. Lighting similar, stop signs and all of that very similar. We've actually had, we've already, even though we're kind of very early in the process, we've already got interest from a couple different hoteliers. Had one fly out from back east already, take a look at the property. And so I think that we've got some good traction and have a pretty good vision in mind, and hopefully you guys feel good about it. And we would really, really welcome the opportunity to create, like Todd said, a world-class community here.
Thanks, guys. This is not my first time seeing a version of this. And, from just for share a couple comments for the council. I mean, I second what Jan has been saying. These guys have been really good to work with. They listen to what our needs are. They've thought about how to address that while still trying to create something that's going to work for them. And so I think, and Todd mentioned the key points. So one is obviously there's there's 300 rooms, give or take, that generate room night type revenues. The other thing is that there are different price points here, which I think is, a desperate need for us. And I like the idea that these guys have thought about, how do we do, mama bear, papa bear, baby bear kind of stuff, and make it so that we can get a variety of price points, and therefore a variety of constituents into the space. So I'm pretty excited by that as well, because I think it's something that's overdue for Hideout. It gives a chance to change the demographic of the community a little bit and see if we can't maybe lower the average age a few years.
Hey, I got a couple of questions for you guys, if you don't mind. I'm assuming we're opening this up to questions and answers for council and other residents.
Yeah, we are.
Hey, just so I'm looking at this, and by the way, very nice. I like the fact that you guys have maximized green space and that it doesn't look like a giant apartment complex. So kudos on that. So it can be done up here. How about that? On the south entrance, that's not the same road that goes up to the soaring. No,
Golden Eagle.
Golden Eagle. That's a different road, correct?
Yes.
Nice. And then on the east side of the plot, it looks like you have some estate-sized lots where I assume you'd have some large custom homes.
Right.
Correct.
And then other than the hotel, with the townhomes or some of the other units, did you envision that being a permanent residence or more like maybe a second home, maybe some units that would allow short-term rentals? What was the thought process on that?
I think, Todd, do you mind if I jump in? I'll
Yep,
jump
go
in
for
on
it.
it real quick. Yeah, so in terms of the nightly rentals, or what would operate either as a hotel or a nightly rental, we really view as both the hotel, the bed and breakfast, and the big house. I don't know that we see the townhomes. We view the rest of the community as probably as a for sale product that will both accommodate primary residences and those that would be second home users. I hadn't thought about that for the townhomes, but I could see where people on the townhome would be interested in doing something like that.
It's very nice. And I like, one thing that I wish this community had more of was something more along the lines of Tuhei, where you had like maybe more, a community center. Do you envision that the amenities would be available to all the residents in the town, or just to the homeowners who purchase in this community right here?
So far, all of what we plan is that all of the roads are going to be public. And by extension, really, that means that all of the trails and the access to the trail system would be public. We had planned on having this is inevitably what happens. We're open to that idea, but inevitably what happens is that we create an HOA and then members pay they basically pay for the maintenance of all of those improvements, right? And all of the, whether it's the clubhouse or all of those other things. And so we've gone through this in some of our other communities where right now the plan is that it would just be for this community. I suppose, and Todd, we hadn't even really talked about this, but if people outside of the community wanted to use them, they would need to participate by paying paying some type of HOA that would help maintain those.
Or
we
a
hadn't really thought.
Or a membership, I would think, McKay, would also work. That if you wanted to pay X dollars a month for access to the workout room and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I think
there's ways to accomplish that, Bob.
Yeah. For folks outside the community nearby, I think there would be some interest in a paid type of membership to gain access to the amenities.
Okay.
So yeah, very nice job.
Thank you.
Hey, I would love to jump in with a comment. I have to go, but I really love what you've done here. I've actually been up to the big house twice with a client, and we all commented that it would make a wonderful bed and breakfast up there, and the views are spectacular, and I really like the way that you have a mix of, looks like will be a mix of price ranges, which I think is really needed in this area. So I look forward to seeing it go further.
Great. Thank you, Sherry.
And I have to run, but aloha, everybody.
Welcome again, Sherry. We look forward to having you a little closer to home for the next council session.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Any other comments from council?
Yeah, one question or a couple of questions maybe. We're certainly concerned with how we build out the commercial. So the piece around, the description you've given around the hotel and what that will be certainly would be, expounding on that a little bit more in your next level discussion with us or the planning board, I think would really be important. And if there's any property here that could potentially be used by the town for other commercial. That's really where we need to add. So if you can take some time on the, the rateable sides of things, potentially where there might even be some property, because those are the pieces that will add economic value to the town at this point. It's Tom and Todd, right? Both of you guys with the T's here.
McKay and Todd. Sorry.
It's McKay and
I'm
Tom.
McKay. Todd,
Oh, you're
sorry,
McKay,
we
sorry.
should have introduced. And then Todd, you can raise your hand.
Yeah,
The other
I'm
one's
Todd. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so my confusion there. So McKay and Todd.
No problem.
Yeah, if you can build out a little bit of information around that. I have the same comments as Bob and Carol and well, Bob and Sherry, I think, who mentioned, looks good. It's a nice mixture. It looks like you've dealt with the sloping areas fairly well. I would be interested in it if in the final plans or in the next series of plans, not just what's over 30%, but what's over 20%, which can be a pretty high sloped area. So just from my planning board experience, both here and otherwise, I think that, don't know where those exist or not. So commercial, sloping, I do like the mixtures. I think Bob was asking about the, overnight rentals. Looks like about what is it? About 1/4 are single family homes and 3/4 are either multifamily townhomes. So I don't know if that's in accordance with our mixture. We'd love to have you guys talk to Thomas, our planner, so to speak, and or at this early stage, or is that your next step?
I've talked to Thomas, and yes, that'll be next step. We've talked on other issues, but we'll get together with Thomas on this.
Yeah, so he really thinks about good mixtures, and I think we should think about that. Overall, again, it looks good. Wasn't sure about where some of those pieces, particularly the commercial, might reside, because that's really critical to us going forward. And there could be a few ways to deal with that.
Okay.
Those are my thoughts. Turn it over to anyone else.
I'd
Thanks,
like
Ralph.
to make a couple comments. I'm unfamiliar with this piece of property, so I would really like to see it. Winter's coming and we're going to have snow, and I just wondered if it's possible to have one of you take me through it. Or I don't know anymore if field trips are possible with our open meeting laws and our restrictions. But it might be beneficial that we all get a look at the property and the contours. So,
Carol,
can you answer
Todd
that?
and I would be happy to take you up this week. Murray, like I said, who represents the seller, they've been wonderful and accommodating and helping us do all of that. And so you just set a time when you'd like to be up there, and anybody else at the council, and Todd and I will make it happen.
Yeah, so
Okay.
just in terms of open public meeting laws, what you'll need to do is if it's 2 or less council members, then that's fine. But if there's going to be more than 3, we need to notice it as a public meeting, which needs to be noticed at least 24 hours beforehand. And if that happens, the public should be invited as well.
So we can take you up 2 at a time, maybe.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Right. Carol, if you have, maybe what I'll do is I'll coordinate with Jan, but if you have time this week, Todd and I would be more than happy to take you and any one of the other council members who wants to go up.
Okay, I could do it Friday, can't do it tomorrow.
Could you do it Friday early?
Uh-huh.
I could do it Friday. My son is playing he's got state playoffs for football, and so I can't miss that. But I could for sure, but I could do it early in the morning. If you could do it early in the morning, I'd be happy to do it.
Like 5:30 a.m. Does that work for everyone?
How about 4:30?
How about we'll coordinate with Jan if that's okay.
Offline, guys, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Okay.
So anything else for these guys?
Before we leave this issue, can you scroll down, Mayor? I just want to show you some of the quality type aspects of the development.
Well, yeah, maybe if you go to even the next page, Mr. Mayor, you can see we've tried to break down on the top. We don't have an image for the hotel, at this point. But you can see on the condos and townhomes, the image on the left is actually this product called the Big House. And then you can see some of the images are from Hotel Park City, very similar to what we plan on doing on that Big House concept around the hotel. The casitas, the images are the smaller units that are going to be built in and around the lake. And then we have the villas, which is again a step up from that. It's on a more of a plateau on the property. So it's, you're going to have a little bit more property and patio space to deal with. And then those lodges we view as being out on that leading edge where it'll be lots of, 2-story glass where you can look out and kind of capture the views out over the valleys. So hopefully that gives you an idea of the direction that we'd like to go architecturally and the type of scale from each one of those products.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. Anything else from council? Then thank you, McKay and Todd. I think you got some input, some things to think about, and we look forward to working with you as you try and bring the process forward.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Next item is ratification of claim phases 1 and 2 subdivision and plat amendment. Thomas, do you want to help us with this, please?
Sure, I can walk you through this one pretty quickly. So the claim subdivision was, it received final plat approval for phase 1 back in December 14th of 2017. That was for the full subdivision, which included a number of phases. As the applicant was working through that phasing, working with UDOT, working with connectivity, et cetera, there were some delays. And the applicant did come into the Planning Commission and request an extension for final subdivision approval back in November of 2020, and that extension was granted. That extension really should have come to the town council. And as they have gone on to record both phase 1 and phase 2, really, given that it was an oversight, we wanted to make sure that they came in and did get ratification from town council for the extension for these subdivisions so that we can clarify that oversight. That's really all this is about. It's not changing the subdivision. It's not changing the layout, the density, anything like that. All of the approvals still stand. They're not being changed. This is really just ratifying what was done previously with the overall approval, and then phase 1 and phase 2, which went to final approval. And Chris Ensign is on the line. If Alicia, you want to unmute him. I think he's under Solstice Homes and he's unmuted already. Okay. So I can answer any questions if you have them, but basically that is what we are trying to do, is clarify that oversight.
Polly, have you been through this?
Yeah, so this actually kind of came, when I looked through what was happening, and phase 1 was under the former town attorney, and he went through a certain process. When phase 2 came through, it was being processed in a similar manner, but when I really looked at the code, it was, it seemed that we had gone, that for the subdivision plats, they should go through planning commission and council. But because of the reliance on the first phase and where we were, we allowed that one to go through as well, with the condition that we have the ability to have a public hearing or just at least the public be able to comment on it and try to kind of retrofit this and ratify it to match what's already happened. The future phases will all go through planning commission and town council.
So Polly, are you saying that we need to have a public hearing to comment on this, or
No, I think if anyone wants to speak to it, I would say I would recommend that you allow them to speak on it, but it doesn't have to be an official public hearing.
Okay, thank you. I think we've got some drawings here that will remind everybody what was I guess this is what was originally envisioned. This gets Chris, this is you have a total of 88, I think, approved.
That's correct. 88 units.
And so this is the first.
That's phase one.
Yeah.
There. So that's the first, what you've kind of seen that's either completed or currently under construction.
And that's where we're of this, and then I think this is the pieces. This is phase two, and this is the pieces to the right of the existing construction so far. And these are the two pieces that we're asking to ratify.
That's right.
And Thomas, just to clarify, and if I may, I just want to say it's great to be back with everyone tonight. It's always fun getting back, kind of like getting the band back together with you guys every time I'm in. Since 2017, I was looking at that date when I got my first approval. With Planning Commission, I almost, as I pull into claim now and I get to slow down at my leisurely pace and hang a left. There's no pucker. It's just a nice smooth glide right into claim. I've never been so happy and proud to see asphalt. It was the hardest earned stretch of asphalt I've ever been involved in my life. And I just want to say thank you to the town for all their help navigating that process with UDOT. At some point, I almost was convinced you guys at the office figured out how to put me as do not answer on your caller ID, because I was always trying to figure out how to get that through. And when we finally punched through with UDOT, it was a glorious moment. So thank you, everyone. Everyone enjoys the widened highway, the XL and decel lanes. It's the best feature we had been waiting on for the project. So thank you. That was the reason for the delays on all of these approvals, is we just could not progress the project without that being completed. So we've had a lot of catching up to do, and Dan Danzy did connect with me earlier. So as you mentioned, we did come in and do this a while ago, and then I think Polly was just kind of working through all the clarifications that needed to be done and noticed it wasn't done the right way. So anyway, this is phase two. We're excited to get started on that one. And anyway, just appreciate everyone's help. If there's any update questions I can give you on the project too, I'm happy to answer those now.
Hey, Chris, this is Chris Byer. I just want to give you a heads up that when you go on to your next phases, I know I remember you made I remember you made a offer to put in public trails. And I know that they have not really been fleshed out as far as, in that area that's kind of open space beyond, where you're planning to put your future phases. Then that would be something that I want to have the details fleshed out when you do come forward with your future phases.
Yeah, so we're definitely planning on those still. So maybe I can connect with you at some point and just on what details. They're definitely drawn in and we're planning on them. So we've had a lot of site work that we've been working through, which would pretty much blow up those trails every time. But at some point here in the future, we'll probably be able to tackle those. My guess is it's next warm weather season, next summer sometime.
That sounds good. I just wanted to give you a heads up that that's what I'm thinking.
You
As
bet.
far as these, it's catching up with, us dotting the i's and crossing the t's with the phase 1 and phase 2 subdivision. I'm good with what we have in front of us. No question.
Thank you, Chris. Any other questions for Chris or Thomas on this, or Paula for that matter, on this cleanup? Okay. Anyone on the call, any questions? Again, it's not a public hearing, but we're based on advice of counsel, I'm willing to let anyone who has a question to raise their hand and bring it forward. Okay, so what I guess what I would need is a motion to, I'm trying to find the right language here, to ratify the final subdivisions for phase 1 and phase 2 of the claim project.
Could I clarify on that? And maybe this is a poly question. I understood a little bit more as we were extending approvals, which allowed for plats, but not necessarily that we were ratifying plat approval. Maybe that's part of it. Is that a part B to it? I felt like
No.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So the issue is really that, and I know our code is confusing and I understood. So the code that you got the extension under had to do with your concept plan, but you never, when it first got approved, no plat, you didn't have any kind of detail to the plat that's required in order to actually record a plat. And that's what you have now. But those did go through staff and staff signed off on them. But according to state law, they need plats, and our code, plats need to go through planning commission and town council. So because you had those plats, and that's what we kind of explained to you, that, that it's a little bit at your own risk of doing this way. But, the first one was done. And then the second one was kind of caught in limbo. And so we let it go through. But which is why the subsequent phases will go through planning commission and town council to actually approve the plats. Now, the plats, of course, are related to your concept plan, or what, I can't remember what they called it, preliminary plan that got approved back in 2017, I want to say.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, December 14th. So, but this is just, so we're just kind of going at least through a public process to show transparency for these two plats that were recorded without, normally they should have gone through this process before getting recorded.
Okay.
Does that make sense? And if you want to talk about that more, Chris, offline, I'm happy to do that.
So I guess what I'm looking for, Polly, is what language should I be using as far as the motion?
Yeah, a motion to ratify phase 1 and phase 2 plats.
Okay, that's what I thought. So if the council doesn't have any more questions on this, then I'm looking for a motion to ratify the claim phase 1 and phase 2 plats.
And just to be clear, there was no changes here, because I think I remember this from the planning board. I'm just wondering why so there's no changes from how this originally was concepted, and this is just a kind of ratification of the plat. Just want to make sure there's no changes. Is that correct? Or
No changes, Ralph. It's what they brought forward and what's been signed.
That's correct.
okay, just ratifying that what was previously.
And Mr. Mayor, there may be a hand up. I think I see one.
Okay, well, I
KMCA.
didn't see any before, so.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to ask one question for clarification purposes. My name's Jessica Rancy. I'm a real estate attorney. I represent Chris and on the Solstice project. I just wanted to, I'm just a little unclear on the process that happened, and I just wanted to double check that the final plat approval that was approved on December 14th, 2017 is still valid. Was that one approved correctly? And do we need to ratify that one as well? Because it sounded to me like you were just ratifying the phase 1 and phase 2.
Yeah, so, and we can talk offline as well if you want me. I can, it's kind of a longer explanation, and I can, if you're legal counsel, I can walk you through the state code on this. What was approved in 2017 was not a plat approval. It did not have the level of detail that is required under state law for a plat approval. What was approved was more of a preliminary plat or more of a concept plan. That's still valid.
Okay.
But the reason why these particular plats they also need a process, and that process didn't happen. So that's why we're trying to.
Okay. So that original concept plan or preliminary plat or whatever we're calling it, that was approved and is still valid?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the new phase 1 and phase 2 are consistent with that plat and are getting approved today. And then when Chris comes back to do the final stages, he has to go through that process. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that your understanding, Chris?
Yeah, no, that sounds good. So, and sorry, we are just clarifying everything. So each phase I come in to do a new phase or plat, approximately 12 units, I'm going to go back to planning commission, back to city council, town council to do this final approval each round. Is that what we're saying?
Right. That is what we're saying. And that's mandated by our code and state law.
Chris, that's in the code, and that is the process. That's right.
Okay. I'm clear. And I was just clarifying on that part. That makes sense.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having a quick chat with you offline, Polly, and just seeing what was approved and what wasn't.
Okay.
But that sounds great.
Chris has my info. Okay. He's been diligent and following up, so he can give it to you, and we can. Okay. I'm available.
Thanks, Polly.
Okay, let's try again. Third time's the charm.
Also move. I think I remember.
Yeah, thank
some
you,
of this.
Ralph. Yeah, so motion to ratify.
Second.
Was that Bob with the second?
Yep.
Okay. Chris, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Thank you. Carol?
Yes.
Thank you. Bob?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Okay. We have we've closed the gap on that particular item, so thank you.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Thomas, you have another opportunity for us here.
Great. Okay, so this is for the Deer Springs Phase 2A and 2B. This is an extension request pursuant to the code. The applicant has 6 months to get an approved plat recorded. Both Phase 2A and Phase 2B were approved by Town Council with an ordinance on May 13th of 2021. And so on November 13th of 2021, the 6 months will have expired. And so as Nate and PT and those folks are working through the final innings of getting their construction plan sets and plats and everything done in accordance with planning review, engineering review, et cetera, they're butting up right against that timeline. And so following the code, they have come in and asked for a 6-month extension for that, for the recordation of both plat 2A and 2B. Again, there are no changes proposed in terms of layout, density, design, anything like that. This is just an extension as they continue to work through the process with their design and construction folks, as well as the town planning and engineering. And I think that Nate is on the line, as is PT, if you have any specific questions that I can't answer.
So just, you know, council, you may have seen, you know, the progress in Deer Springs Phase 1. But you also seen the may see as you drive along the work on the hillside that these guys been trying to do to get the road cutting up to the Jordanelle Parkway. It's just there's a bunch of slopes in there, and there's a bunch of stuff we've had to figure out, and you know, and no specifically fault of anyone. It's just it's taken longer to get this sorted out than we anticipated. So they need some more time, and you know, as Thomas mentioned, you know, staff, both design and engineering, are fine with the extension, as am I.
Yes.
So if you've got questions, great. If not, I would look for a motion to grant Deer Springs Phase 2A and 2B a 6-month extension to finalize their plats.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Ralph? You there, Ralph?
My bad, yeah, yes.
Thank you. Bob?
Yes.
Thank you. Carol?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
All right. Okay, guys, you have the time. I know you won't need all 6 months because you want to get moving.
Thanks to all of you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. Next item is a presentation of first quarter financials. Is Wes on? Jen, do we know?
He's not on. I just texted him and he thought the meeting was tomorrow. So I think he might be jumping on right now.
Okay. Should we move on and come back to that? So we don't spend time. So let's do item 5. That's a relatively quick one. And then we can come back if Wes pops on. So item 5 is to set a date and time for the Board of Canvassers meeting to certify the 2021 municipal election results. So I know it seems a little strange to do that, given that there were no opposition for most of the positions, but we have to do it because it was an election and it has to be certified. So Alicia has suggested either Monday or Tuesday night of next week, because we have a limit of time when we have to do that. And it's a 10-minute meeting at the most, where she will present the results and then ask for us to confirm that we're comfortable with what the election officials have done. So I think those are the dates, right, Alicia? Monday or Tuesday?
Yeah, the 15th or the 16th.
So I need at least 3 council members to be here from a quorum standpoint for either Monday the 15th or Tuesday the 16th. And it can be at 6 or 6:30 or whatever you guys need to accommodate at least 3 of you. For 10 minutes.
Well, I can do Monday because I think we have our economic committee meeting from about 4:30 on, so maybe that would just swing into it. So I'll be available.
Yeah, Phil, I should be here.
Okay.
I'm good.
Monday's fine.
Okay. All right. So Monday, 6 o'clock. Okay. You want to do 6:30? What's best for those of you that are working?
6.
6.
Yeah, 6 o'clock.
Okay. So let's do 6 p.m. on Monday. All right, Alicia?
Got it. Yep.
Okay. So Monday the 15th, 6 p.m. We'll be there. And we'll get that certified. So congratulations to all of you and thank you to all of you for having made the challenging choice to be to continue to work with the town council. Appreciate it very much. Okay. Any sign of Wes?
So he said that if you have any questions to email him or have him present at the next meeting.
So Jan, do you want to try and do this? Or you want to do we want to move this to December? Jan? Hi. Jan.
Sorry, were you talking to me?
I was. You're the only Jan on the call.
I've been chatting with other people, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I busted you once again for multitasking, I know.
I can't hear you.
So anyway, so Wes is not available.
Yeah,
tonight.
let's move it to December.
Okay, then we will, given that this meeting is fairly late at night, at least for some of us. I'm okay with doing that. We'll move it to December. Okay, the next one should be lively. Many of you are aware, I'm sure all of you are aware that Park City has announced an annexation plan that overlaps with Hideout annexation area. And we got a couple maps that we can look at here. Maybe Polly, do you want to take us through this? Or
Yeah, so this lays out, and we have kind of 2 maps. One is kind of a little further away, and then page 2 is closer up. So this just shows where Park City is, where Hideout is, where Silver Meadows is, where our annexation area is. And as you may recall, after we included our annexation area to include all the way up to 40, Park City came along, and even though we had already done it, they went ahead and made that part of their annexation area, expansion area. And now they are trying to annex in this, none of the area that we actually tried to, that we are, the subject to our annexation, that of course we're subject to litigation, but that we had the referendum and the voters overwhelmingly supported. So yeah, you can see there, they go right up to our line. I think that we have reasons that we can protest the annexation. And so we need to have the legislative body support a protest. And authorize the mayor to submit it. And of course, I'll be involved in drafting that.
Again, if you, as Polly mentioned, we have a resounding support from the constituency of the town for the expansion, the annexation, sorry, that we did in fact have our annexation plan was done in advance or ahead of Park Cities. There is overlap, and we just want to make sure we go on record stating that we had originally looked, expanded our annexation area to include the areas that they're annexing, and that we would, if the landowners in that space wanted to work with us, as opposed to Park City, I believe we would be willing to listen to that. We want to put that on record.
Yeah, so Mayor, I was there with you when we went through our whole general plan process. And we were very deliberate when it came to identifying our annexation expansion area. And we did that for, we still have the same reasons as we did a few years ago when we adopted that, as well as our general plan. We have the same reasons to want that annexation expansion area. So I am in favor of the protest.
Thanks, Chris.
I kind of look at this a different way, and not that we don't want this, we'd like to have some control over it, but there are 3 new people that just joined or that are about to join the Park City Council and the mayor. From what I understand, they have a different kind of view. So I'm really surprised that this kind of contentious approach before the end of the year and they take office is kind of occurring. So rather than protesting, I'd see if this is an opportunity for us to work together with them. So that's what I'm understanding behind the scenes. Is this something that we could at least say, let's have a conversation together about how we're jointly planning this area and what we'd like to do versus why they're even stepping in here at this point, so to speak. So is there another mechanism besides just forming a protest on this? Number 2, who's generating this this approach? Is this come from their their existing town council? Is it coming from, so that's changing. So why don't we see if we can't if we
Ralph,
could suggest delaying that?
So
Well, we have there's a timeline. Yeah, so
can we ask them to change their timeline?
No, so the timeline is established by statute. I think from it seems pretty deliberate that they went through the process to begin this annexation. They certified the annexation on October 28th officially, which then gives us until November 27th to protest. It's all statutorily mandated. So they're marching forward. And
well, this is all emanating from the past though, Polly, right? It's not necessarily emanating from their current administration. And I think my personal feeling is if we go in that direction, we're never going to have a dialogue with Park City. This might be our opportunity to use this as an opportunity to communicate with them in a way that's a little bit more civil between our 2 towns. I don't think that's the right way to go on just generating a protest. If we have to, it should be a protest.
I think you're right, Ralph. I'm very supportive of the thought process, and I think we can couch the protest in a way that that allows us to, that opens the door for dialogue. But we need to go on record stating that we see it as a conflict to our previously announced plan. we don't have to be nasty about it, but I think we have to be on record legally to state that, as I said, we see it as a conflict to our previously announced plan. And, but we would love to talk with them about, how we together maybe can talk about what the right way to move forward with these parcels.
I don't know if you remember, but when we had our annexation hearing, one of the town council members, Chris Robinson, came and
he's with the county.
Pardon me?
Chris Robinson is county council. He's not with
Yeah. Right. But when we had our annexation hearing, he appeared and was quite gracious and had dialogue. And I think it was an effective way to say that he protested, or the county protested. And I think Ralph is right on. I think we need to do more in person, and even if we are saying no, I think we need to show up and we need to talk and have dialogue.
I think you guys are missing the point here. I think we all want to be good neighbors and have, good, reasonable conversations, but Park City is deliberately rolling over. They're just steamrolling right over Hideout, when in fact we licked the stamp already in this area and claimed it in our expansion map, and then they're just simply ignoring that and trying to put their stamp on top of it, which I don't think is right, and I don't know if it's legal.
Well, I have to break ranks with you here, Chris. I think this could be from past history, and that's what I don't know, and I'd like to clarify that. I'd like to get some input from the new administration, which has really gotten, tremendous support from the number of Parkites, so to speak. And I think there could be a change in their approach. And if we continue along the same path, we're only going to have the same result with our dialogue.
I hear you, and I'm happy to reach out to Park City and High Energy to have us have a chat with them. But again, from a legal perspective, we need to go on record stating the facts, which is that Hideout had done an annexation policy plan prior to Park City's, and that the annexation that they're proposing overlaps ours. Okay? We're not saying we won't work with them. We're not saying anything else, but we have to go on record and have that as a recorded input, just as they went on record during our annexation work where they said they didn't like it. And that's, it's a matter of record. It didn't affect, our decision-making around what we wanted to do, but at least, they had the right, and it's on record that they thought we should not do what we were doing. So I think we have to go back and say, we think you shouldn't be doing this either. But we'd love to talk to you. So,
well, even if we protest, I'd like to get some clarification on this from Polly. Even if we protest, does it really mean anything? What's the outcome of the protest?
Oh, yeah, no. So, and maybe I should have explained this more. So let me take a step back and talk about, it's very statutorily dictated. And so the process, they're the ones that initiated this process. So we're basically reacting to their initiation of this annexation. And what they did, kind of what happens is they initiated the annexation. I'm just trying to find, I was just looking at, I've got too many things opened here. But so they heard it in front of their town council, in front of their city council. And then they voted to move forward with this annexation. And then we have, after they certified the petition to annex, statutorily, we have 30 days to protest. And by protesting, it's not just saying, we're not just saying, hey, we want to write a letter to Park City and say, we disagree with you. this is an official process where we file a protest with the city and also Summit County. The county will put together a county boundary commission, which will hear this. It has to have all the mayors or 2 mayors from the towns within the county have to be seated. I think it's going to be a commission of, probably around 8 people. I didn't count it all up, but it's a very formalized process. If we do not submit a protest, we waive that right. And then they can just move forward and file this with the Lieutenant Governor's office, and the Lieutenant Governor will certify their annexation.
Well, are we certified for the same area?
Well, so the difference is that, so there's 2 levels, right? There's annexation boundary area, which is the area. So what happened was, prior to my being involved with the town, as well as, the town in 2019, as part of their general plan, as part of your general plan, the council determined that this whole area, as where the cursor is, where the purple area was part of our annexation expansion area. So that means we declare that, we go through a public process to declare that. And that means that if we want to annex, it has to be within that area. That enabled us in part to annex the Silver Meadows section. After we did that, Park City came shortly thereafter, seeing that we had done this, and they then changed their annexation boundary area to here. Then nothing happened, right? We both had that as part of our general plans, but now Park City has made the move to actually annex in this area. So we have a couple reasons to protest this, because it is part of our annexation area. It creates an island within because of what they're annexing. They also, they didn't even send us what's called an affected entity letter, even though we're an affected entity because of our annexation. And granted, the annexation, right, we're under litigation, but as of today, the Lieutenant Governor has certified our annexation. The referendum kept that alive. And yes, we're under a court order, but the fact is that we have, and we're going to be appealing that court order. So we have an annexation area that abuts this, and they haven't sent us even an affected entity letter. So I think it's ripe for protest. And if we don't protest, then the annexation will just go through.
And it may still go through, but at least we'll be on record of stating that, our position is X, and, we see this as an infringement on what we believe is our position. So it may end up in court at some time in the future, or it may not. I don't know, but I personally believe we need to write a letter, and council needs to support me in this.
Yeah, Ralph, I think it's in the best interest of Hideout as a town to file the official protest because of exactly what Polly said. Otherwise, we still, I don't know if you want, as a council member, you want to go back and revisit what our expansion area is and eventually change the purple and take Richardson Flat out. But when the council and, with a lot of public input, with the planning commission, a lot of public input, made those decisions and, adopted that expansion area, I mean, we did it. We still have the same general plan goals. We still have the same objectives. And currently that's what we had agreed was our expansion area after a lot of debate. So, you know, having been involved in that, I strongly support us speaking out and you know, protesting this.
Well, I was there too, Chris. I was, you know, certainly part of that process and going out to get people's input, so to speak, when we went through and designed the annexation. I get all that. I'm just trying to figure out a way where we can use this as an opportunity with the new administration to have a dialogue. And obviously we cannot retract it within the time frame because they're not in power. So until, you know, January. So I get that. So we may be forced to the protest, but I would put I would put the incentive on us as kind of, this could be a very lame duck annexation piece based upon their previous administration. And therefore we're just falling into that zone where, yeah, we're going to protest, but I'd say, Mayor, it's up to you maybe to lead the charge around reaching out and saying, can we have a dialogue after the first of the year, kind of when the new administration takes place, and talk through this because we're both annexing the same property. And more importantly, what are we trying to do with this property? Rather than, you know, just saying we got boundaries and you have boundaries. I think we're missing the point here anyway. So I would be more than happy to be part of that, especially since we're talking about the economic development and extension of our community in an annexation approach. So I think from everything I've heard in the grapevine, they're willing to, you know, some of the new folks would be willing to talk to us. I think it's our opportunity. So
I agree.
I'll vote for the protest if we have some concerted effort to reach out.
I absolutely support what you just said about the concerted effort to reach out. I think in listening to the campaign points from the people who were recently elected in Park City, they certainly seem to be very aligned with a lot of the things that we're talking about from the Hideout standpoint. So I do think there's some common ground here. The other piece of the puzzle is the landowners inside this area also have a voice. All right. So as we all know, annexation requires a few things, one of which is the consent of the landowner. So you know, there may be other inputs. There will be other inputs into this annexation, I'm sure, besides ours, because I'm not sure that all the landowners in here necessarily are aligned with this as well, but we'll find out. But yeah, I would love to have a dialogue with them, again, based on the comments made by at least two of them during the campaign. I think there's a lot of overlap, and look forward to trying to figure out how we can work on this together.
Isn't MIDA within that boundary within the boundaries that they're trying to annex?
No.
It's not?
No, MIDA is not in Summit County.
Okay.
And all this land is on the Summit County side of the border.
Okay.
Not all of our annexation area, but this particular Park City annexation is in the Summit County area. So it abuts MIDA, but it's not MIDA. So, other questions from council? Bob, any questions that you need for clarification?
No, I'm good.
So, you know, again, we have strong constituent support. We have an annexation policy plan that was developed prior to Park City's annexation policy plan. And, you know, we are an affected entity. And so, again, I am looking for council approval to utilize our town resources to file the appropriate documentation stating our case. And yes, Ralph, I will take the lead, and we will reach out to the new council members and mayor and look for dialogue once they are in office, and once our new council is in office, even though our new council is our old council. Because we all have to be sworn in January as well. So I'm going to poll the council around yay or nay on whether or not you're comfortable with my taking the lead to work with our legal team to follow a response to their annexation. Bob?
Yes.
Yes, yes, you support that. Okay.
Yes.
Chris?
Could I just suggest that maybe it be a motion for the council to file a protest against the annexation petition?
Okay, then I need a motion, somebody to support a motion to file a protest against the annexation petition.
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Thank you, Chris. Okay. Carol?
Yes, I approve.
Thank you. Ralph?
Yes, with everything I've said.
Okay. Chris?
Yes, and supporting what Ralph said.
Bob?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you, council. I appreciate that. We will continue to pursue both the legal process as well as a dialogue. All right, these things change sizes on me, so I'm trying to get there. It's Cameron. Let's talk about this. Cameron, so we've talked with you guys about the emergency operations plan before. I have finally made contact with the Wasatch County emergency operations plan leader, emergency operations leader. He has been working to get us in front of their board. He was supposed to meet with the board this week, and that, I don't know if that's happened or not. I've asked. I was supposed to happen on Monday, and he sent me a note saying he has to talk to them first before I can talk to them. So we're still working on the exact details of how we will work together on this, but I'll let Cameron talk about why we can still move ahead and have an EOP in place, even though we're still working on the exact details of like a call tree and some stuff like that. So Cameron, if you would.
Thank you, Mayor. So there's really three things that we need to resolve for the EOP, and the mayor just talked about that, whether or not Wasatch County would be willing to operate as our emergency management organization. So that is still ongoing, and we'll have to resolve that in the future. The other two issues is, regardless of who's going to handle the emergency operations, we need a written plan that covers how it's going to work, who's going to administer it, what our notification plans are going to be, all of the sort of rubber meets the road types of things. And so that is where in the resolution we adopt essentially the written document that is Wasatch County's emergency operations plan. And if the town wants to approve use of that, then we just need to change some of the headings and the language, and the things that talk about Wasatch County will instead refer to the town. And that's just the document that organizes and operates the emergency operations plan. The last thing is the town or is the order of succession. So we need to designate who will be the emergency operations manager And then if that person's not available, who are the next people in succession? And so that's what the section 2 of the resolution does, is to designate those positions so that we have that operations plan. So by passing this resolution, we would then have a written emergency operations plan, and we would also have the order of succession.
Thanks, Cameron. So if you guys have questions for Cameron, now's the time.
Yeah, Cameron, this is Chris. So beyond adopting the EOP, do we ever actually exercise it?
So yeah, so this is the typical lawyer answer. It depends. But if we adopt the plan, if we have something that is large enough that 1 or 2 people can't handle it, then potentially yes, we would use the operations plan. If it was something so significant that it exceeded the town's resources, by statute, it would default to the county anyway. And so it's hard for me to answer without, knowing the scenario.
I mean, well, normally with an exercise, you have a scenario, right? And you practice, whether you're just doing a tabletop kind of thing, you're not actually simulating a disaster. Sometimes you're just talking through one.
Correct.
So,
Chris, that's the stuff I'm trying to work on with Jeremy Hales, who's the EOP lead for the county. He's figuring out, how we work with them, how we escalate, how we participate in the appropriate training, etc. But that, in my mind, should not be a barrier to our adopting a plan, even though we don't have all the pieces in place.
Cameron, I have a question. How important is it for the emergency interim succession, those people that are designated, that they live in Hideout?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it certainly helps if the person that is the emergency manager knows the area, the geography, some of those type of local information. But it's not a requirement. And I can tell you, just from the other sort of emergency response that I've worked at over the years, frequently, federal emergency managers come in from out of town with no knowledge of it, and they still can do the job. They just have to rely on the people with the local knowledge. And so it's not necessary that the emergency manager has to have that local knowledge, but it definitely is helpful.
I'm just looking at the succession list. I know the mayor and the town council members live in Hideout. I'm not sure about number 1 and number 3.
No, they live nearby, and I can promise you that Tim is becoming intimately familiar with Hideout and all of its peculiarities.
Okay.
As he does his job. So I mean, he's out there every day, touching the real estate. So I don't see that as a barrier at all. He's probably more knowledgeable than any of the council members, or will be. And no disrespect to the council members, but Tim knows where all the pipes are and all the wires are and all the rest of that. And not everybody, not all the rest of us do.
Okay.
yeah, Carol, depending on the nature of the emergency, it could actually be impacting those of us who live here, right? And I know when we do disaster recovery, in my line of work, we have people that are not located, that are someplace far away doing the recovery, because the assumption is sometimes, depending on the scenario, that the local people are all, caught up in the disaster itself.
Yeah, and maybe just a short explanation of what the interview or the emergency manager does would be helpful. So the emergency manager is simply the person who is organizing the resources of either the town or the county or the state or the nation to deal with the emergency. So in this case, if the emergency manager was the director of engineering and public works, and there was, a large landslide that had some structures involved. So the emergency manager would simply deal with getting the resources to deal with that. So getting the fire department, getting some earth moving equipment, getting, some inspection in, getting some police resources, all of that is going to happen through the town's administration. So even though the emergency manager is the emergency manager, that person still has to go through the mayor and the town council, depending on what the resources that are needed. So if the emergency requires expenditures, the council is going to have to be involved in approving those expenditures. And so just designating this person doesn't mean they're the one that's going to do everything. The rest of the town officials are going to be involved in that whole process as it happens.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good explanation. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
And I do feel like we need to, start, incrementally taking whatever steps we need to put this in place. If it is just, adopting this emergency operations plan tonight, and at least, we've taken a step in the right direction to get to where we want to be.
So as you may remember, as we did with the police services, as we've done with animal control, I am working with Wasatch County's emergency operations team to, understand, how our relationship needs to work, whether or not we need to bring additional funding to the table, or any of that kind of stuff. And but also as Cameron mentioned, by statute, there are things that, regardless of whether we bring money to the table or not, if there's an emergency, the county, the state, and the feds, depending on how bad it is, all have to respond, because that's what they do. So, but by having this in place, it enables us to call on those mechanisms to come help us if we get into that situation. And recognize this is a resolution. It's not an ordinance. So if you're open to doing this, then I would need a motion to adopt the resolution. Motion supporting the resolution adopting emergency operations plan and emergency interim successors for town office.
I so move.
Thank you, Carol.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ralph. Chris?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes, definitely something we want to move on.
Carol?
Yes, we've been looking at this for a long time, so.
Thank you. Okay, and I will keep you up to date as we continue to make progress with the EOP team in Wasatch. And by the way, they've been super open so far. I have no reason to believe that we won't be successful in getting to some kind of agreement. Okay. The next one, which we all have a lot of energy for, is the winter parking and snow removal ordinance. We've seen a version of it a bit back. Some more work's been done. I don't know if Tim, or I know Tim worked on this, Cameron worked on this. Who wants to kind of present it to council?
Well, Mayor, this is Tim. I'm definitely will say we both worked on it. Definitely, it was a team effort, and it's pretty simple in regards to, I think, hopefully it addresses some of the things we brought up in the last council meeting in regards to kind of what we wanted to do for winter parking. I will say some of this is, again, taken from other towns throughout Utah. I know Cameron's kind of went through, and Polly's had a chance to look at it and add some of her comments, which we have incorporated. And so, again, I feel like this is a pretty good ordinance that if you council decides to make a motion tonight, definitely we could have it in place, because one of the, as Mayor has stopped, one of the dates is November 15th for winter parking dates. And so we'd kind of like to have something in place pretty quick as we get ready to move into snowfall here this month. Otherwise, we'll have to push back another month, which would be fine if everyone needs to take some more time to look at it. But I think, again, Cameron, I'm going to kind of segue to you on this, but I think from our standpoint, we feel like it's ready to go for council, correct?
I think that's correct. We took the guidance that the council gave last month, where, you know, originally we were looking at redoing the entire parking section, including the construction plan, and the sentiment that we received was get something in place for winter parking. And so that's why we came up with this. We still have some other work to do in those other sections, but this on its own, as it stands right now, would allow the town to work with the parking in the winter season that's rapidly approaching.
I just a question. How did you come up with November 15th instead of, I think October 30th is what our signs say?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chris. You know, that's kind of been as Utah has been looking, as I've looked around Utah, that's kind of been the de facto date is November 15th. And so I know we're up a little bit higher than most of the towns here in Utah, but that's kind of been the de facto date. And again, that can be easily changed. If we need to move that to October 30th, we can definitely do that also. So but that's kind of, and I know Polly, actually, one of her comments was, you know, April 15th, that seems a little too early. And so again, we're flexible on those dates, whatever we think that you would like us to have that, kind of on, again, based on some snowfall over the last couple of years. That's kind of been about the ending average of when some major precipitation has come in the form of snow.
Now, Polly, we can ask, what do you do in Summit Park? Because I think it starts in like
end of August.
End of August. It ends at the end of July.
That's true.
You know, guys, you know, we got to start somewhere. This is a decent place to start. Based on the research these guys have done, it's fine. If we want to go October 30th to April 30th, that's fine. But let's just pick one and go.
Global warming, we're okay. I'm okay with November 15th. I just think we have to change our signs, right? But
right. Yeah, that's a great statement, Chris, to be quite honest. And you know, I have to admit, I probably should have looked at our signs just to make sure what we've had out there originally. But again, we can make sure we get those adjusted as needed.
okay. So this essentially no parking between midnight and 8 in the morning.
8, correct.
Okay. But we do allow construction to start at 7 a.m.
Yeah, that's correct. So they do that. But again, when we have our pre-construction meetings with developers, and I'll give you a great example. We had one with a developer about a week and a half ago, and we said, hey, listen, you know, by the way, here's your new hours, or not new hours, but here's the hours you can work during federal holidays. And he didn't know about it. And I said, well, he kind of argued with me, and I said, it's in our town ordinance, and this is what you're going to do. So same type of scenario will apply to this. We'll just say, hey, listen, from here on, if we're moving it to 8, or sorry, we're not moving it to 8, but you know, we want to make sure that we can still have access to roadways at 8 a.m. So, you know, we have to be able to clear one lane. So So that's kind of why that 8 o'clock is in that time frame right there.
Okay.
So
And
we'll let everybody know.
it doesn't impact the existing, I mean, there's the remainder of the parking ordinance that we have that's not in here, as I recall, parking only on one side of the street. That still is in effect, right?
Correct. And go ahead.
Sorry, and as Cameron mentioned, the last time when we looked at this and they had a bunch of that for review, we said, let's just get this one section cleaned up, then we'll come back and keep looking at the other stuff.
Okay, nope, that makes sense, and I totally support that. I know we're all hoping the snow's gonna start soon.
Yeah, and to be honest, just for council and for mayor, and I think mayor, we talked about this. We left this as a separate section right now, just for clarity's sake and ease of, okay, here's where we're going it. As we continue to add stuff or maybe change things, and we feel, and Polly had mentioned this, we will actually be able to move this into our existing parking ordinance section as we kind of get things going, and that way it'll just kind of all be in one section. But for right now, we thought this would be great just to have as a standalone, because we know where it's at. We can make our changes, do what we need to do right away.
I do have one comment on section 718.060 with priorities. I think we need to define a residential street. In main arterial street, there needs to be some definition of what we mean there. Are cul-de-sacs, and does that include dead ends, or are they different?
Yeah, on our snow map that we'll have posted, and Mayor, I think you have seen that.
Yeah.
The first version, we kind of had those color coded as priorities. So I think honestly, we ought to put, maybe Cameron, let's put in there something on cul-de-sacs and dead ends is our third priority type of street. That way we know, because that could definitely tie into some residential projects that may not be 100% built out yet.
Well, and again, I think we have the same issue on what is a residential street if it's not, versus a main arterial. I think we just,
yep.
A picture is great, but we probably need to put a little bit of language about that.
Yeah, and we did that on the main arterial streets with, Mayor, if you scroll back up, you'll see it says Shoreline and Longview. And
that's
yeah.
Right. Okay.
So I agree. I think it needs to be clarified a little bit more in that section. We can definitely do that. That's a great catch.
Quick question here. Once we, assuming we approve this, how are we going to socialize this? Because I know we just had a HOA meeting. Snow removal comes up all the time. And I know, some of the same things were contained in our discussion. One being, don't push snow into the street, everyone, and those things. So it'd be really great, because there's a lot of good stuff in here. How are we going to socialize this? Not just putting it on our website, but a lot of people don't read our website. Maybe we can push this out to some of the HOA leaders, so to speak. I think they often have good communications with their, so to speak, sub-constituents, whatever you want to term that. But I think socializing this really quickly, because it's going to happen. It's going to, hopefully we will get snow.
Really good idea, Ralph. Really
Ralph, that's a great idea. And just want to give you an update. I have actually been talking to a couple of the HOA presidents or council members about some of this stuff. And so my plan is, along with our normal methods of communication, website, working with Alicia with our other forms of communication, whether it's email or text. One other thing is that I'm actually putting together a meeting with our developers. Hopefully in the next week. We're trying to get everyone to kind of agree to a date, but hopefully in the next week we'll actually have a meeting and we'll sit down and we'll talk about, here's what we're doing. And I can actually open that up and then make sure we definitely include all the HOAs that are in town and make sure that they have a chance to be able to attend that meeting if they would so choose.
Yeah, just getting the leads on the Sea to Skis and the management, because they're the ones who actually push out all the emails for the HOAs on things like this, and they'll remind everybody about winter parking in the HOAs. So if you can connect with them and update them, I'd say that gets a lot of folks informed properly, because not, I know even my wife, she looks at the HOA stuff. She doesn't go to our website and say, "Oh, the town just updated this," unless she
Right.
talks to me.
Right.
You know?
And yeah, and I've been working, I'll give you an example with Nicole Blumen with Wrestler, but we need to make
Perfect. Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
like you say, I need to make sure we get
Jerry
with all our
Hohenstein, those kinds of
Yep.
folks, they really get the messages out to a lot of people. So anyway, food for thought. If you can do that, Tim, that would be great.
That's a great
Yep,
idea.
I'll make sure I definitely do that.
Other questions? Then I'd like to ask the council to support a motion to enact an ordinance regarding winter parking for vehicles, snow removal from streets, as presented tonight, with the caveat that we will add a definition of secondary roads and cul-de-sac / dead end activity.
Actually, I think it was residential streets.
Sorry, residential, yeah.
So moved.
Thank you, Bob.
I'll second.
Second it.
Oh, sorry, Ralph. Beat you, I think.
I'm gonna put down Ralph just as a second.
Okay.
Chris,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to thank Tim and Cameron for working hard on this. This was a lot of work, and you turned it around quickly, and now we have something.
Well, thank you. Again, they're fun to do. I love doing ordinances. So I shouldn't say that probably too out loud, but it's definitely the fun part about this.
Yeah, you're in trouble now, Tim.
I know, Mayor. I shouldn't have said that.
I got about 10 more I want you to work on.
I know you do. I'm excited. Bring it on. Bring it on.
So thank you all. That's fantastic. Okay, it's late, I know. But I would like to at least present this to you. We don't necessarily have to do it tonight. We can do it at the next, finalize it at the next meeting, but I want you to at least think about it. So we have been operating under an interpretation of the code where up to where up to $10,000 would be the mayor and the staff could make those investments and make decisions around the selection of services and so forth. Above 10,000, we need to bring those to council. Upon further review of the code, we identified that while that's correct for getting proposals, our code language had much lower limitations on the actual approval dollars. And so we're looking to modify the code. The code goes back 10 years, and $10,000 doesn't buy what it used to buy. So we've done some research. Polly and Cameron have done some research, and we also have some new staff levels that with professionals that can hopefully make good decisions for us. That's why we have them. And so we're looking to modify our purchase approval requirements that allow that the town clerk can can make some decisions on the smaller items that, that Tim and Jan can make them on up to 5,000, and that, the mayor can, go to 15,000, and above 15,000 can go to council instead of 10. So that's what we'd like to amend. We can either do that tonight, or you need time to think about it, that's fine. Or if you want to adjust the numbers, we can talk about that, but.
I didn't get a chance to really get into this one, but it looks like, is the table on page 70 consistent with A, B, C, and D? Because
That's what we're modifying. The table you're seeing in the black was, the red was what was in the prior code, and what we're changing the ranges on, right? So we used to go from 1 to 5,000. Now we're going from 1 to 10,000. We got rid of over 5,000 and then over 10,000. How we're doing that with bids and so forth. So I think it is consistent, Ralph. So one is the quoting part of the process. So this is the quoting part of the process. And then the second part of the process is the actual purchasing part of the process, which is or the first part. So this is, when we get quotations, right? We can make decisions there. And then once we have those quotations in, who's actually authorized to sign off on the money. So they're not intended to be the same thing. They're intended to be two parts of the process.
yeah, that's what it looks like. So we're still going for kind of bids for anything over 10,000, but we'll allow the approval of anything below 15,000 by yourself and the
Right.
yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the confusing part to me, as
Yeah.
why they weren't consistent from the table back to A, B, C, and D. Or
Yeah, because I mean, like we went through a process to identify a vehicle that was available for $10,400, and because we didn't have the purchase power above it, we didn't get it. Even though we went through the process of identifying it, because we didn't, by the time we could have got to council and got approval, it had already been sold.
Mhm.
So that's why we're trying to put a little bit of room in there, just because of how these things, when you get into these bid things, this is how these things work. So.
And are these approval requirements and quotation requirements kind of consistent with towns or cities similar to our size with, our staffing levels?
I'll let Polly address that, because I know she did some research on that.
Yeah, and just I've done the purchasing, purchasing policies in a lot of towns. Some towns do it as just a policy. You guys have it codified, which is fine. If anything, your guys' numbers are lower than what I've seen for both for purchase approval and for the quotations. A lot of the other kind of benchmarks I've seen have been closer to 20,000 for when it would go to council for approval if it's not in the budget, or 25,000. And also that would be the same for when you had to go out for quote. So I think you guys are being very conservative here.
I don't think there's any mention here if it's in the budget or not in this, is it? Is there? It's just, these are.
Yeah, it's kind of I say that because if it's in the budget, then in a sense, the council has approved it already. So you don't need to go through anything. And I should also note, we looked into the fact the existing code already has a provision for emergency purchases. So that's already covered in there.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely all for now that we've got our staffing in place, upping our purchase approval requirements. This, as Polly said, are a little conservative, which is probably good. We can always raise it again if we need to.
I mean, I'm okay with it from my experience in the job for nearly 4 years. I think we can, at least to date, we can live with these numbers. We're not busting through the top here very often. So I'm okay with it to start with anyway. It's better than what we had, and I say if we find it gets onerous from the staff and town standpoint, we'll come back to you and let you know.
I'm fine with it as well. Doesn't look like anything exotic here that we have to, maybe even wait on for next one. It seems like we could
I
take a
promise
vote
I'll come
on
to
this.
you before I buy the town helicopter.
Don't buy any $15,000 Christmas trees. That's all I gotta say.
No, we won't be doing that either.
Without putting it out to bid first.
Yeah.
Okay. No, this is good. See, that's a good thing about these long meetings. Sometimes we're really willing to just move on things. And I think we're ready to move on this.
All right. So I need a motion to support the amendment of the purchase approval requirements as discussed this evening.
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Chris.
Took it.
All right. Ralph, how do you vote?
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
thank you all. I appreciate it. So we have on here, we have an item for executive, but Polly has contacted you previously, and we don't actually have a need to go into executive tonight, as we don't have any new information beyond what she provided to cause us to go to executive. So unless one of you sees otherwise, I would recommend an adjournment to the meeting.
So be it.
Yes, let's do that.
Yep.
Okay, so I need
Motion to adjourn.
a motion to adjourn, yeah.
Second.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Bob.
Yep.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, thank you all.
Cheers.
Super job tonight. I appreciate it very much, and we will talk to you soon. Everybody stay safe. Have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Take care.
Okay. Good night.